Jersey.
Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah. 97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Well, a happy hour Friday starts now. Unfortunately, it's not so happy. What's up, everybody? The Sports Bash is live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House in Egg Harbor Township. Ooh, man, I like the scene that we have. A full bar, and I'm working. That's usually the case on a Friday. Everybody ready to go. We've got $3.50 Bud Lights and $5 neutral orange seltzers. But, man, last night Phillies lose again. And I wake up today to what people like to call the panic button. A lot of concern seems to be hitting, a lot of doubt seems to be hitting Phillies fans all over the place. I woke up today, had a lot of people on social media talking about the team and moving on and what they can do and how they can shake this up. I got news for you, everybody. I don't know that there's a big fix. You know, everybody says you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to change the lineup, you got to shake it up. I've been telling you for months, this lineup does not have a shakeup. There's not a shakeup in this lineup. If I'm wrong, now listen, I know the one shakeup that you guys can give me, okay? So let's get that one out of the way. If there is one shakeup to the lineup, it would be at the top of the lineup. The problem this team is having right now is what? The top of the lineup stinks. The top of the lineup right now is the problem. So what are you going to do? Shake up the top of the lineup by reshuffling the guys at the bottom to the top? That's not going to help things out here. You're not going to move, Bryson Stott, who was a big key for your team. You're not going to move him up to the top of the lineup. Where are you putting him in the lineup? I know the one shakeup. That if you're listening right now and I say, guys, give me a shakeup for this team, because the offense has been pitiful. You ready for this? The offense, Brandon Marsh, I've been telling you for months, he stinks. He has left 156 runners on base in 472 plate appearances last year, okay? In 472 plate, this is from Bob Wankel, by the way. In 472 plate appearances last year, Brandon Marsh left 156 runners on base. He has already left 150 runners on base in 363 plate appearances this year. It's absolutely heinous. And I've been telling people for months, you can't hit Brandon Marsh in the 5-hole. They finally moved him out of the 5-hole. The problem is they don't have an option. I've been saying for a long time, they do not have a number 5-hole hitter because Brandon Marsh is not capable of it every single day. And even when he does play as the 5-hole hitter against right-handed pitching, he's not good enough. And Nick Castellanos isn't good enough either. I mean, we all know this. So what is the one change that this team can make? It's the obvious one is this. It would be shuffling the deck at the top. Meaning, Turner leads off, somebody else hits 2, somebody else hits 3, and somebody else hits 4. Right? That's the shakeup. That's the only shakeup. The problem with that shakeup is, part of the problem is the guys at the top. That's not part of the problem. They are the problem. The guys at the top of the lineup have been dreadful. Last night, awful. Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Bohm was not in the lineup last night. Now, Bohm's been okay, but it's the other three that have just been struggling. You look at this lineup and say, you got to do something. You can't just keep going like this. You got to do something. That's what everybody says, right? What is it that you can do? What is the one thing that this team can do? And I don't know that there's an answer to that question. I just don't think there's an answer to the question. I think you just got to ride it out and hope that things just kind of take off. And these guys are just in a bad slump, and that's it. Because seriously, all right, let's play. I'll play along with you guys. That's lead off, and I've said before, my lineup, I would say you could go Turner, Harper, Bohm, and Schwarber in the 4-hole. You could try that. Okay, well, if Turner and Harper are ice cold, what the hell's that going to do? Nothing. All right, so that's one thing. Let's try again. Let's try something different. What are we going to do? We know Harper's not going to lead off, but I'll play along. You want to go Harper, Turner, Schwarber, Bohm? What's that changing? Nothing. So the 4 guys at the top of the lineup, you can mix and match them any way you want. They are part of the problem. So mixing and matching the top of the lineup isn't the answer. So let's go to another problem. Okay, what are we going to do from 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? You can take anybody from there and say, hey, why not drop Turner to this like you did last year? There's a time last year where you moved Turner all the way down the lineup. All right, you want to put Stott in the 2-hole? Now you have Schwarber, Stott, and Harper, lefty, 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 hitting in the top of the order. So that's not going to work. All right, who else? Who else did we want to put? You want to put Real Muto in the 2-hole. Flip-flop Real Muto and Turner. Well, what the hell's Real Muto doing? There's just not a guy that you're like, this guy at the bottom of the order has been a spark for this team. He's going good. Why not go with him? So give me some direction, everybody. What am I missing? Is there a move I've heard a lot of people talk about? You got to shake up the lineup. You got to shake it up. I don't think there's anything to shake up, honestly. I just don't. Am I missing something? Is there something that's staring right at me in front of my face that I'm missing?
What about
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. What do you got?
What if you put Bohm at 2?
Bohm 2, Turner 4?
No, Turner lower than 4, maybe put him like 5 or 6. So it would be like Schwarber, Bohm, Harper, and then Castellanos, and then maybe like Turner after that.
So say that again. Schwarber,
Bohm, Harper, Castellanos.
Which is essentially what they're doing now. I mean, you're just flip-flopping Turner and Bohm.
Pretty much, but I'm putting Turner below Castellanos.
Yeah, Castellanos stinks. So what do you want? I mean, you're in the same problem.
Well, Castellanos is hitting around 300 since the All-Star break.
He is. He's been pretty good, but, I mean, not a very impactful 300. I think we can all agree on that. But, listen, I think, again, you're just kind of moving the furniture around on the Titanic here, right? It's like, hey, this chair looks good in this corner. Let's move it to this corner. It might look equally. Or this chair looks lousy in this corner. Let's move it to this corner. It looks equally as lousy. I mean, your thought's admirable, by the way. I mean, Bohm in the 2-hole, I have no problem with that. I just don't know that's I don't know what kind of spark that's given this team, in other words.
Well, the thing is, if they have to do something, don't you have to at least try to see if shuffling the lineup, maybe put the better hitters. I mean, your top 3 hitters in the Atlanta series, they went 2 for 33. And the one guy who was hitting, they benched him yesterday. So at some point, don't you have to at least be like, well, at least we know Alec Bohm's hitting. Maybe we move him up.
I have no problem moving Bohm into a more prominent role, but I don't know what that's going to do for the team. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, if you took, you mentioned it, the top 3 hitters in this series, you ready for this numbers? Bryce Harper, 1 for 18. I mean, if you were just to take a 1 for 18 in sample size, you would say this guy's got to hit in the bottom third of the lineup, or not at all. But
right.
You know that's not happening. Bryce Harper's going to hit third no matter how bad of a streak he's on. Trey Turner, 5 for 34 is the streak he's on right now. Now, last year they did move him down the lineup, and that's a possibility, I guess. I don't know if that's shaking the lineup up because there's really nobody that I mean, you could say Bohm, but now you're moving everybody else up one spot, and that is kind of defeating the purpose, right?
It does defeat the purpose, because isn't the whole point of shaking the lineup to put your better hitters in a more advantageous position?
Listen, you want your better hitters at the top of the lineup and then work your way down.
Right.
Right now, the entire lineup is 7, 8, 9. If Bohm is the one guy who has not really hit the tank, but mostly this entire lineup, Harper, Turner, Schwarber included, they are all right now. You would be asking at 7, 8, 9, should you take them out of the lineup, right?
Right.
Schwarber, by the way, 4 for 23 in the series. So during the 3-game series with the Braves, I got 6 guys sitting right in front of me right now that would be just as competitive. They struck out 32 times, and they were 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The top of this Phillies lineup. is the reason right now we're having this kind of conversation. It shouldn't be a surprise. I guess the question is, as you wrote in our notes today, Josh, the ghosts of Philly's past seasons are haunting them. I would ask this question. Are they at least haunting them at a better time than they've haunted them in the past? Because this is just about as bad as it was in the Arizona series. This is about as bad as it was in the Astros series.
It absolutely is as bad. And my concern is that, okay, even if you get it out of your system now, there's no guarantee that it's not going to come back later. There's no guarantee that if we got out of our system in August, well, it could still come back into your system and lay dormant until October 20th.
All right, I think, by the way, Austin Hayes should be back in the lineup. I don't know what that does for anybody, but he's an option. Maybe you put him in hey, you know who would have been a nice guy in the 2-hole? The guy who was hitting 2 for Atlanta last night. How about that?
Right.
You know, he helped out for them a little bit in this series. He had a better on-base percentage and a better batting average than everybody that the Phillies trotted out.
Yeah, the whole
there
Phillies team combined, basically.
Yeah, listen, I can't sit here and deny that this is frustrating and that this team is really scoffing along. But I also don't think that there is I don't think there's the pound the table, you gotta do, you know the fans, you gotta do something. Right. I don't know that something exists. I honestly, I could say, yeah, what can I try? If anybody has some options, shoot them over to me. 609-403-0973. I got a bunch of text messages to start us off today, Josh, and I don't know that anybody has a great answer. Let's see. Mike from Margate says, like you and I said the other day, they need to get a bat at the deadline, which they didn't. Changing this lineup is not enough. Happy anniversary, guys. Hey, thanks, Mike. By the way, 15 years of the Sports Bash. We're live today at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House, Bud Light, $3.50 drafts at the bar, the whole show, $5 neutral vodka orange seltzers at the bar. 10 people, first 10 listeners today. If you're coming by to say hello and stopping out and having a beer with us, come see. Madison is sitting right in front of me. She's got the list of the first 10 entries for this year's 99 Bottles Party. So anybody who wants to be in this year's 99 Bottles Party, stop out, give her your information, and you're in. That's it. You don't have to call. You don't have to, try to get through. We are taking 10 entries today for this year's 99 Bottles Party. So we got that going on, and we're giving away tickets to see David Spade at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. All right, so, Mike, back to your business at hand. They needed a bat. I said they needed a bat. They failed at that. I said Rooker. I would have gone all out for Rooker. That's what I would have done if I was Dave Dombrowski. I don't know what they were asking for. Would you have given up Andrew Painter? Hindsight now, would you give up Andrew Painter to get Brett Rooker?
I don't think I would have done that, only because of the fact that Painter's like the one guy everyone seems to have a consensus on.
All right, he is coming off Tommy John. Keep that in mind. But I agree. Painter's one guy. Where's my guy that texts in trades with 9 guys? If any, would there be a package of a 4-for-1? Nobody wanted Mick Abel. That's part of the problem. Abel's really failed you. He would have been the guy that I think the Phillies would have been comfortable trading.
Griff McGarry, maybe?
Nah, he's not getting a deal for Brett. He could be part of the deal. But if you're going to get a player like Rooker, you need to now part with a guy that when you give him away, it hurts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The pain is, I didn't want to give that guy up, but I know I had to. Giving away Griff McGarry. Is anybody bothered by that?
I'm pulling up right now the prospect list for you, Mike.
Aiden Miller. If you gave away Aiden Miller, that would hurt.
That would hurt a
Justin
lot.
Crawford. If you gave away Justin Crawford, that would hurt. Any of these other guys that guy texts in, he texts in great names. I applaud that guy for knowing the Phillies system as well as he does. Bravo to you. I'm telling you, I talk to people in that Phillies organization all the time. The guys they gave away, nobody cared. They are very inconsistent pitchers. Clausen is a guy that really surprised, but there's not a lot of anticipation. And if he works out where did he get traded to? Baltimore, right. If he works out for Baltimore, it would be a little bit of a surprise, but they don't care about that. The guys it would hurt, I'm talking about. Guys that hurt if they trade him away would have been Miller, and Justin Crawford. Now, on hindsight, would we have given up on Aiden Miller to get Rooker?
No.
All right. Justin Crawford?
No.
All right, so now you're stuck with the team you have then. So you're saying Dombrowski did the right thing. He didn't give up on those guys, but this is the roster he kept.
So really quick, I just pulled up the list. I put it up for those who are watching at Mike Gill Show on the Twitter X platform. So after Miller, Painter, and Crawford, you have Kaba, and then Abel is 6 on the MLB pipeline. So you could have made an argument to maybe trade him, but maybe Rincon down at 10, right? Maybe there are other guys on this list that you maybe could have turned around and tried to sell to the A's, right?
Kaba would have been a guy I would be interested in trading. Why? He plays shortstop.
Right.
And yes, he might be a great shortstop. He's 19 years old. But you signed a shortstop for 10 years.
Yep.
So I don't know what you do there.
And Bryson Stott is actually a shortstop as well.
So you have that position, the middle infield, second and short, are occupied, blocked for the next 10 seasons, and then Bryson Stott, whatever contract he ends up getting, because you would assume he gets an extension at some point to stay here.
100%.
So Starlin Cabo might have been a guy you'd say, I don't want to trade him. And he might, remember, I'll remind people, J.P. Crawford was once the number 1 prospect in all of baseball.
All of baseball, correct.
Now he's turned into a nice player, but are you like dying because you don't have J.P. Crawford anymore here?
Nope.
Of course not. So I take a shot with Starlin Caba. If I could have put a package together that he was the lead part of that package, that's the deal that I think, now I don't know that deal was ever on the table. I can't say that knowingly, but that would be a guy that I would have certainly entertained.
And I think the other guy on here that I would have personally entertained, if Abel was not somebody teams were interested in, I definitely would have seen about maybe a guy like Nori, because you already got 20 million outfielders on this list.
Another text message says they should have kept Hoskins. That's another interesting one here. I'll throw this out at you guys. Could have kept Hoskins and played him at first base. Could you not have played Bryce Harper in left field?
In theory, you could have, but
seriously, like right now, what do you have a problem? Your problem is in left field. Now you could say, well, he played right field. I think Bryce Harper could have handled playing left field. And if you wanted to switch Harper back to right and Castellanos to left, yeah, Castellanos is not a great outfielder, but he could have handled playing either or. But would this team have been better putting Bryce Harper back in? Now, listen, Bryce Harper has been a very good first baseman. Rhys Hoskins, not a very good first baseman. But was that the move that would have helped them out the most? Is saying, you know what, let's just bite the bullet, bring Rhys back, and figure it out. Or, maybe Rhys Hoskins is the designated hitter, and you just have to play Schwarber in left field.
Well, Mike, let me ask you this question. I'm going to pop Rhys Hoskins' stats on the screen right there. You tell me, 217 batting average with 20 homers and 60 RBI. Is that good enough to help this offense?
No, and that's a good point. My next thing was going to be, Rhys Hoskins sounds great in theory. 303 on base this year, 217 batting average. Now, the 20 home runs, it's better than what you got. I mean, it would have been interesting to see him hit in the 4-hole here, have him behind Harper, and then Bohm maybe hits 5.
Or maybe in that case, Bohm stays at the 2 spot, right? And maybe you let Bohm be more of a contact guy at the top of the lineup. I
think they signed Trey Turner for $300 million. It wasn't to hit in the bottom half of the lineup.
Got it.
So that's my take on that. I like Bohm too. I like Bohm in the top half of the line. Although I think Bohm would be better served if he was hitting in like the 6-hole. He's he's about a 290 hitter with like 15 home runs right now. It's a nice hitter. He's a good, solid hitter. He hits well with runners in scoring position, but he's not an impactful bat that the other team's like worried about. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, to say he's not a good hitter, I think, is missing the boat. He's a very good hitter, but he's not an impactful hitter. He's not a power guy. So what he is a gap to gap. He does a good job, puts the ball in play. He drives in runs, but he's not scaring the other team. They need a guy that scares the other team. And Hoskins, coming off that injury, maybe he's not there yet. But the 20 home runs is more than every other guy on this team not named Schwarber and I guess Harper, right? Does anybody else have over 20 home runs on this team?
I'll pull up the full list.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I think Castellanos has 16, and he might be the next highest guy on the list. 609-403-0973. So, look, yes, you could have brought Hoskins back, have him be the DH, and let Schwarber play the outfield for most days. And then if you wanted to give him a day off, you could have had Schwarber DH, and then Hoskins could go play first, and then maybe Harper's the DA. You could have done something like that where you're just rotating those three guys so that, they're all DHing and stuff like that. But
by the way,
I
Hoskins would have been the third most home runs. See, because you have Schwarber 28, Harper 26, then Castellanos 16, Turner 14, and then Bohm at 13.
Mm-hmm. So Hoskins right now would have the third most home runs on this team. Mike, how about put some speed at the top and some more pop in the middle? Let's see. What lineup do we have here? Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber. Though that's the one that I have said. Like, if you were going to do a shake-up a little bit, it would be this one. Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, Castellanos, Marsh, Realmuto, and then the Stott Sosa platoon and the Hayes. Well, he has Hayes Rojas. I would think it's a Hayes Marsh platoon. And by the way, I don't need to see Weston Wilson play third base again in my life.
That was bad last night.
It was bad. And it's like, I get it. You're trying to find a way to get him into the lineup. The way to get him into the lineup last night was to have him play left field and have Marsh play center field. Okay, right. That's if that's what you want to do. If you're saying, hey, we got to find a way to get this guy in the game, you don't need to give Bohm a day off. He just had a day off Monday, right? They didn't play, so he had the day off there. And to play him at third base was criminal last night. He was awful at third base last night. He was terrible. I don't need to see that circus again.
I mean, he might be the worst third baseman in a long time for the Phillies.
Well, he's just not a third baseman. He's just not a third baseman. I mean, it's admirable that he can play multiple positions. He plays second, he plays third, he plays outfield, but he's not a major league third baseman. He can play there, but he's not a major league quality third baseman. That was bad last night. 2 balls that he really should have had. He got eaten alive on last night. So, but this lineup here, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, that's the one that I have said many times. Like, if you want to do something, you want to get Schwarber in the middle of the lineup, and then keep in mind, you want to try to separate the lefties. So Harper then moves to the 2-hole. How willing is Harper to move to that 2-hole? Don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I understand Harper's not playing well right now, but he is still the star of this team. Like, how do you have that conversation with him, Mike, about we got to do what's best for the team? That's what you're comfortable with.
Rick from EHT. What's up, Rick? Hopefully you stop by Vagabond EHT. We're right up the road from you. He says, only so many arrows in Thompson's quiver. This current lineup is what we need to ride with. Just got to hope they're all hitting on all cylinders come playoff time. Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, you could try the Turner leadoff and Schwarber in the 4-hole and then Harper too, but I don't know that that's changing anything because of the fact that part of your problem is Harper, Turner, and Schwarber are so cold. So you're taking the cold guys and just, it's like you got a bunch of stuff in your freezer and you're trying to create more room, so you just move stuff around the freezer. It's still saying ice cold, right? It's not doing, you're just moving to put more stuff in there. 609-403-0973. Harper wanted to play first base. He did not want to go back to the outfield. Oh, I know. But you could say, Bryce, for the team, we need you to go back and play the outfield. You could say that. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. We got all sorts of prizes, giveaways, stop out. Madison's sitting in front of us. She's got the sign-ups for 99 bottles. If you want to be in this year's 99 bottles party, stop by and see her. We got 10 entries today. 10 entries. That's it. And we're getting heading to 99, which means we're going to have 99 entries. But 10 of those 99 are going to be filled today. If you stop out at EHT Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House, 3016 Ocean Heights, Egg Harbor Township, $3.50 Bud Lights and $5 Neutral Vodka Seltzers. Coming up, by the way, is Rob Thompson sounding concerned about his Phillies. And is he concerned about the 6-game lead now in the division? We'll ask Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City if he should be. And that's next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Guild.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Not really. I mean, we got a long way to go. So, you know, I'm more concerned about our club than anything. I'm not really concerned. I look at our club. I say, okay, what do we need to do better? Well, we need to cut down our chases, swings and misses, and put the ball in play and use the field, do things like that. We pitched very well in the series.
Rob Thompson last night, did he slip up a little? I'm more concerned about our team. Well, not concerned about our team. Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. You heard Rob Thompson. Is he starting to sound a little concerned? The lead, Mike, is down to 6.
Well, he should be concerned, not so much with the division lead, but because one way or another the Phillies are going to play in October in the postseason. But he has got to be concerned with the way this team is playing. It's been, 2 months now of this substandard play, especially bad since the All-Star break, where they're one of the worst teams in baseball since the All-Star break. And, our eyes are telling us that this is a team that does not look like a team that will go on a long, deep postseason run. So, yeah, right now, Rob Thompson should be concerned, yes.
A lot of people texting in today with ways to shake things up. Mike, I don't know that there is a shake-up. Do you, in your mind, have a shake-up of the lineup or something? Is there something that is staring at us in the face that they haven't tried that they can try?
Yeah, I don't know. I think when you look at the and we all know the numbers, we can look them up. What the top 3 in the order did in Atlanta these 3 games was not much. And if Schwarber, Turner, and Harper are not going to hit, they're going to have big problems. The only shakeup I can see is you want to send Brandon Marsh down to AAA to try to find himself. He had a good at-bat, I guess it was on Wednesday night when him and Stott had the back-to-back sacrifice flies to bring in the winning run in the only game they won down there. But he has just been a nightmare at the plate, especially recently, just an inability to make contact and put the ball in play. So maybe you send him down for 2 weeks to sort of find himself, but you bring up a guy like Cody Clemens. You're not bringing up Joe DiMaggio or Willie Mays, Barry Bonds is not walking through that door right now. Either the stars produce or it's going to be a short postseason for the Phillies, and you can make some moves around the edges, i.e. a Brandon Marsh sending him to AAA. But in the long run, is that going to fix stuff? Because Brandon Marsh is in Lehigh Valley and Cody Clemens is here. That's not going to fix things if Turner, Schwarber, and Harper don't hit.
Well, and that's the thing, Mike. They made a trade for Austin Hayes, right? They got a guy to hit in the 9-hole. Like, what did that accomplish? You got a guy that's hitting in the bottom half of the lineup. Now he's hurt, obviously. It should be back tonight, I guess. But the addition they made did nothing to help where this team really needed, was something to break up the struggles at the top. And that's where it is. Like, what are you going to do at the top of the lineup? You can rearrange those guys. Get Turner and put him in the leadoff spot. Schwarber hits 4. Those are the guys that are struggling.
Yeah, you can rearrange those guys, and I understand people saying they needed to make a move to shake up those guys, but you have cast your lot with those guys. I mean, you're paying Harper $300 million, you're paying Turner $300 million, you're paying Schwarber $100 million. If those guys don't produce, those guys are the stars of the team. Like Bryce Harper said a couple of weeks ago, superstars got to show up. If those guys don't show up or play like they did in Atlanta, you can tinker in left field, you can tinker in center field, you can do all you want to the bench, you can do stuff to the bullpen, but if the big 3 guys at the top of that order do not perform, I don't know what, at that point you're just not good enough.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what it comes down to. You look at the top of the lineup and say, when they're going, this team's good enough. If they're not good enough. But the problem you really have, too, Mike, is the lineup depth drops considerably really after those top 4. Castellanos has come on late, good for him. But 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there's not a lot of production from that group of guys. So if that top of the lineup isn't going good, you're in some big trouble. And that's where this team seems to be right now with all 3 of those guys, Schwarber, Turner, Harper, all struggling at the same time.
Yeah, that's the issue, right? That lineup does not seem that long, and that's when – and they had opportunities throughout this Atlanta series. Marsh had opportunities with guys on base. Johan Rojas had opportunities with guys on base. Now, Austin Hayes was beginning to hit the ball well before he got hurt. We'll see what he brings to the lineup coming back, but you're exactly right, and we've talked about it all year. Stott has hit the ball a little bit better the past couple of weeks, but still not anywhere near where you expected him to be. JT Realmuto has been, substandard since he's come back from his knee injury. Brandon Marsh is in the middle of a nightmare season. Johan Rojas kind of is what he is. I think he brings some energy to the field. A lot of stuff happens when he's on the field, not all of it good, but he seems to be at the center of a lot of activity. And then you've got, the ninth spot in that order. So, yeah, this team that is built to hit home runs, built to slug their way out of troubles, when they're not slugging, it's a big issue.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. They're going to play a Royals team right now that is pretty good, by the way. They are going to face 3 pitchers this weekend. All have better ERAs than Aaron Nola does, so you're going to have a guy that's pretty tough every time out. You've got Kansas City and Houston, and then 4 with the Braves. The Braves play Washington coming up here. What are we looking at when the Phillies and Braves meet again?
Well, that lead better be, 4 or 5 games. I would think that's what it'll be. And then the Phillies are really in control of the situation. But you're right about this schedule. Kansas City, outstanding team. Houston playing as well as anybody in baseball right now. Then you've got the Braves for 4. And then you've got, 7 games against the Mets in September that are not going to be easy at all either. So, and this is a ball club, a Phillies ball club, that seems to be exposed by good pitching and exposed by good teams. They, with the exception of the Dodgers, they have struggled against good teams here. The Yankees swept them. The Braves take 2 out of 3. I think they've taken 5 out of 7 on the year. So, there are warnings. The warning bells are going off. And perhaps what is most troubling with the offense, it's the same scenario we saw in games 6 and 7. It's guys throwing soft stuff, breaking balls outside of the strike zone, and these guys chasing it, putting themselves in bad counts, and then, the pitcher's able to put them away. I talked to Bryce Harper earlier this season, and I just asked him, Bryce, what do you have to do to stay hot? He was going through a good streak in May, and he said, just swing at strikes. If I swing at strikes, I'll be okay. Well, right now he's not swinging at strikes, and neither is Schwarber, and neither is Turner, and neither are all the Phillies, and that's what makes this so troubling. We saw this movie in Games 6 and 7 of the NLCS last year.
You talked about Marsh. Marsh, Stott. They have a batting average lower than Johan Rojas right now. Rojas is at 243. Marsh is at 238. And Stott is at 234, Mike. If those 2 guys are going to give you anything, you're looking at a team that probably is a one and done.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think the most disappointing of this part of this season so far has been Stott and Marsh's inability to go to the next level. I at the beginning of the season, I didn't think I was out of line. I expected Bryson Stott to hit about 280 with 20 home runs and drive in between 70 and 80 runs. He's nowhere near those numbers. I would have expected the same numbers from Brandon Marsh. Maybe not the batting average, but I certainly would have suggested or expected from him, 15 to 20 home runs, 70 RBIs. But now you've got a guy in Brandon Marsh who can't even hit right-handers, never mind his struggle against left-handers. So you're absolutely right. Bryson Stott's at-bats have been better recently. He still is outstanding at second base, so I might stick with him a little longer. But you can't have these black holes in the lineup when you get down towards the bottom of the order, especially if the top 3 guys are not producing. And right now, Marsh, he's not even putting the ball in play. There are situations where they need a ground ball to the right side to advance a runner, or if he puts the ball in play, they get a run, and he can't even do that.
Yeah, Bob Wankel put that number out last night. 156 runners on base last year. He left on base in 472 plate appearances. This year, in 363. It's 100 less plate appearances. He's already left 150 runners on him. Mike, this was a guy who got off to a really good start. We were talking about March. They had him hitting in the 5-hole a couple of weeks ago. And I kept asking you, can you win with this guy hitting in the 5-hole? I'm never a believer in Marsh. To me, he's here for pomp and circus. He's a Stubbs to me. He's a little bit better than Stubbs, but he's here for locker room stuff, not to be a key part of the lineup.
Well, that's not what they intended. So when they traded Logan O'Hoppe for him, they were giving up an everyday catcher for him, a catcher who was blocked by JT Realmuto. But one of the reasons they agreed to trade one of their top prospects is they thought they were getting an everyday guy in Brandon Marsh, and he has just not done it. You mentioned the guys left on base. That's strictly because he has not put the ball in play in certain situations. There have been many times where he's come to the plate where all he's had to do is hit a grounder or a fly ball, and it would have produced a run, and he struck out. And it's unacceptable at this point. And you hate to make somebody like the scapegoat, right? But you can't, you're not going to send Trey Turner down. You're not going to bench Bryce Harper. Sometimes you have to send a message, and the guy you can send a message through is Brandon Marsh.
In hindsight, Mike, a little fun sports talk radio talk here. Would you have been willing to give up a little more to get a better bat?
Yeah, at this point, absolutely. Again,
let's say they could have got Rooker, but you had to give up, Aiden Miller or Justin Crawford, Andrew, like one of those guys. Looking back, would you say, yep?
Yeah, I would have done it in a second. I'm not a prospect guy. Again, as we've talked before, I've seen too many situations where prospects do not sort of materialize into what they're supposed to be. We might be living that out with Bryson Stott right now, and you have an opportunity here to win the World Series. This is a team that is built to win the World Series this year and next year and maybe the year after that, and then they have to think about retooling to, stay in contention or resharpen the edges of the franchise. But this is a team built to win right now. This is a team that had the best record in baseball as of a couple of weeks ago. This was supposed to be a 103, 104-win team. That's what they were playing like. And when you've got an opportunity to win the World Series, I think you've got to sell out and go do it. So obviously, looking at it now, a little hindsight, little radio fun on a Friday, absolutely they should have gone out and gotten a better bat. The one thing, Mike, that is in their favor, though, and the reason for people to sort of keep the faith is the starting pitching. Sanchez pitched well last night. Wheeler pitched well. Nola pitched well. We'll see what Suarez looks like on Saturday. I think that's a huge start for the Phillies just to see what he looks like. He's been out more than a month with what was supposed to be a sore lower back. So, who knows what's going on there, but he's coming back Saturday. This team still has the starting pitching to sort of pitch with anybody. They pitched with the Atlanta Braves. They just didn't hit. So all is not lost. The starting pitching is still there, and that's a reason to stay optimistic, as hard as that might be, as we head towards October.
Well, you said it, Mike. They pitched. It was 3-1, 3-2, and 3-2. That was the 3-game series. No one scored more than 3 runs. Now, keep in mind, you've got a compromised Atlanta team, and they just took 2 out of 3 against you. So a compromised Atlanta lineup, they're not getting some of those guys back. Riley, maybe, if they make it deeper into the playoffs. Acuna's not coming back. You've got Albies out for them right now. No Spencer Strider either. So that's a pretty compromised team. They take 2 out of 3 against the Phillies, who, by the way, the latest ESPN.com power poll has the Phillies at number 3. Do you still have them at that high? Do you still like that team enough to be in the top 5?
Well, top 5 in all of baseball, I would have to say no. I would put them 5 or 6 right now. I think the Dodgers are up there. I think the Yankees are up there. I think the Brewers are playing better than them right now as the Phillies. That slots them back to number 4 right there.
Baltimore. Baltimore, Cleveland. I like that Arizona team a lot, man.
I like Arizona a lot. I think they're a bad matchup with the Phillies. It just seems they accentuate what the Phillies don't do well. And it just seems when the Phillies play Arizona, the Phillies look old. Like Arizona's running all over the place. They're making acrobatic plays. They're stealing bases. They're playing well defensively. The Phillies just look old when they play Arizona. So, you're absolutely right. I would not have this team as the number 3 team in baseball right now. And look, since June 10th, since they came back from London, they're under 500. And since the All-Star break, they're one of the worst teams in baseball. So, it's not a short sample. It's not a bad weekend. It's not a bad week. It's a bad extended period.
No, listen, Mike, I was in London. I shook off the cobwebs pretty quickly. I was back and ready to go. I did my job, man. But Mike McGarry, heading to Springsteen tonight, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Citizens Bank Park. As soon as I get off the phone here, jumping in the car and headed down to see Springsteen. Did not go to the show Wednesday, but looked at the set list. It was outstanding. Maybe we get some rarities for the deep fans like me. Perfect night for a concert. I'll be sitting out there in left field, so I'll take a look around and soak it up. Should be a great night.
Well, you know the joke. Springsteen's got more hits tonight than the Phillies will. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There might be more action in the outfield with Springsteen out there than there has been, with the way the Phillies have been hitting the ball lately.
By the way, this is your last week off. You got the football season starting next week, right?
Yeah, it's fun. Next Thursday, the Battle at the Beach, 12:45, mainland Atlantic City. We're starting to put our high school football previews up at pressofac.com, the individual teams. Our special section in the paper comes out on Thursday the 29th, and then the 29th, next Thursday, it begins, and then every Friday night from here till, I guess, early December is high school football. It's amazing how quickly it rolls around. It's amazing how quickly the season actually goes once it started. I would say it starts in the heat of summer by the beach in Ocean City, and it finishes up, with winter coats on in the first weekend of December.
Mike, it'll be. We'll get out on this because I just got an email. Betting odds on the next manager fired. Rob Thompson not on the list, by the way. So they're not going to follow what Seattle did and do something that drastic, would they?
Not in season, but, if they get knocked out of the playoffs early, lose in the wild card round or something, it'll be an interesting maybe uncomfortable off season for people in the Phillies organization. Because I think if they get knocked out of the playoffs and take a big step back this season, I think they've got to take a look at a couple of things, because obviously this formula that they currently have put together is not working.
Mike McGarry, enjoy the show tonight, pal.
I will, guys. See you down the road. Thanks.
Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Yeah, I literally just got those betting odds sent to me on the next manager fired in baseball because Scott Service was fired by the Mariners. They had a 10-game lead in mid-June. They now trail the Astros by 5.5 games. Phillies fans, it's not that bad, right? It's not that bad. You had a 10-game lead. You're still up 6. They had a 10-game lead. They're down 5.5. They fired the manager. They're also 7.5 games out of the wild card race in the American League. He got fired. I don't think the Phillies would follow suit. And by the way, neither do the betting odds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 managers on this list. None of them include Rob Thompson. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We're live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House in Egg Harbor Township. Holy moly, we've got a bunch happening. We've got David Spade tickets. We've got $3.50 Bud Light drafts, $5 neutral vodka orange seltzers. We've got the David Spade tickets for Ocean Casino, by the way. We've also got 99 Bottles entries. Stop by, say you want to be in this year's 99 Bottles party, and we'll hook you up with that as well. More Sports Bash coming up, including John McMullen at 3, Sal Palantonio tonight at 5 o'clock.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
2:54 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live. We're at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House, Egg Harbor Township. We've been on these Fridays out and about, and one of my favorite spots is right here at Vagabond EHT, and they got $3.50 Bud Lights and $5 neutral vodka seltzer oranges, plus we've got the David Spade tickets, we've got the 99 Bottles. If you want to be in this year's 99 Bottles event, which is our biggest event of the year, you know what it means. So this year's 99 Bottles, we've got 99 pairs of tickets, and it spans from Eagles games, Flyers, Sixers, whatever we can get our hands on. Concert tickets, all sorts of great events. We get 99 people entered, and all 99 people win a pair of tickets to something. We are giving away 10 spots to that today. Stop out to Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. When we come back, are the Eagles closer to the team they were 2 years ago, or are they more like the team they were last season? We'll ask John McMullen from Birds 365, who's going to join us on the other side as we get ready for the Eagles and the Vikings. Plus, what battles tomorrow are we watching to see who's in and who's out? Cutdown day is Tuesday. Johnny Mack joins us for a conversation on the Birds. Plus, Adam Kaplan has football at 4, and Sal Paolantonio tonight at 5 o'clock on the Sports Bash.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
With everything that they've tooled up with offensively, with the way the defense is loaded up, with the way they have the coaches around him, like this would have to be a terrible continuation of that job from last year with Sirianni for them to struggle, because everything that they have right now has got them locked in to be as good as they were 2 years ago. Saquon Barkley just himself added on to this team is going to make a huge difference, putting him with Jalen Hurts. I think everybody raises to the level. We're going to see Eagles from 2 years ago instead of the Eagle from last year.
David Dennis Jr. last night on ESPN Radio's Game Night. He thinks this Eagles team will be closer to the team we saw 2 years ago, not the team that ended last year, John McMullen. Are we feeling confident that whatever the bugaboo of the last 7 games last season is behind them, and that this Eagles team, when we see them tomorrow for the final time and then they get ready to go to Brazil, that we're going to get the team closer that we saw 2 years ago? Or do we think we're going to have a lot of ups and downs like the team we saw last season?
Well, I definitely don't think it's going to be as bad as the collapse last season. That's, everybody's still wondering what went on, and that shouldn't have happened from that standpoint. But are they going to be as good as 2022? That's a stretch as well. So, as usual, I think it's going to be somewhere in between. And certainly they have potential, if everything breaks right, to reach a ceiling of being one of the best teams in the NFL. But there's still a lot of work to do. And I think, getting a third receiver, while everyone is excited about it, that's a complimentary player. I don't think that's putting you over the top. I think being able to handle the blitz, being able to teach the defenders, the Vic Fangio scheme a little bit better than they were last year. All of this stuff is not nearly as exciting, but that's far more important than, throwing out, Saquon Barkley. That's not going to make the difference as handling the blitz is going to make the difference for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Real quick on that trade the other day, Mosher was on, and he thought that giving up a third-round pick he actually thought was a little much for the position. Do you think they really needed a slot third guy that bad to give up a third-round pick for?
Yeah, giving up a third-round pick for a third receiver is a little bit steep from just the general perspective. Yeah, that position's not going to generate the kind of production you need. Quite frankly, with this particular team especially, it's going to be a low-traffic position, which we've talked about a lot. So it is a little bit steep, but Howie thinks the window is open, and he thinks it's accessible as well, and he's going for it. So from that standpoint, I don't have a problem with it. But, yeah, I don't think there was – people talk about the in-division nature of this trade. I don't think anybody else was going to offer Washington a third-round pick for this particular player at this particular time. So if you look at it from just that narrow framework, yeah, it's a little bit steep, but I think the Eagles have loftier goals than just about this one particular player. And I've said pretty consistently, to me, it's more about backing up A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith than being the third receiver, because they didn't have that player, a competent backup on the roster before they got Dotson.
Yeah, they made that trade yesterday, John McMullen. Over at Sports Illustrated, you had your training camp awards. I enjoyed this piece. I want to get some more from you on that. You have the most improved edge rusher being Patrick Johnson. I guess my question would be, he's much improved, but does he have a role? Does he even make this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to make the team, and it's partially because he's got a bunch of roles. Not only is he an edge rusher, but he can also play a little bit of off-ball linebacker, and he's also one of the better special teams players. So he's made himself very valuable as a backup player, can handle multiple roles. So it is, it's tough if you're just looking about it and labeling it and saying, tough to keep 6 edge rushers. Yeah, it is, but he does more than that. And over recent days, Vic has kind of unfurled this scheme where he's on the field with Zach Bond. So it looks like a dime look to people, but, I think that's sort of the Andrew Van Ginkel hybrid thing. So he might be that guy.
Wow.
And it's probably going to be Bond or Patrick Johnson. By the way, I'm not saying he's going to be as effective as Andrew Van Ginkel.
Right. Here's a guy with 10.5 sacks all of a sudden.
No. Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to be as effective. He's going to play the same type of hybrid role in certain situations. Yeah, obviously he's not going to do it a ton as he did when he had a player like that.
All right, so you had best rookie Quinyon Mitchell, chalk holds there. Here's the conversation we had about him yesterday. I want to see where you stand on this. So he is right now in the slot, correct?
Well, no, he's playing both. He's playing outside and the slot. So in the rare instances in the modern NFL that there's only 2 cornerbacks on the field, he's going to be on the field opposite Darius Slay. And then when there's 3 corners on the field, which is the vast majority of the time, then he's going to slip inside.
All right. So the conversation we had, which was, and this is, I don't even know how you take this. This isn't like, I'm not slighting anybody but are you disappointed if you're Mitchell or the Eagles or anybody that a guy who didn't play football last year and was a 6th-round pick is more like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're getting bumped to the inside because are you not better than him? Could you not beat him out? What what I'm saying?
No, it's not that. It's he's better. They already have him as, look, he's eventually going to be the outside corner, which Vic has said pretty consistently. It's about getting his best 3 on the field early, and Cooper DeJean's injury kind of mucked up the plan a little bit, since I think they would have been working for him in the slot and Quinyon outside. But that's why I bring up, it's very important when there's 2 cornerbacks on the field, it's very important to understand Mitchell's going to be on the field. That means he's ahead of Rodgers. They're moving him inside when they have to because they think he can handle that better as well. So no, he's ahead of Rodgers and Kelee Ringo. And the fact that they're trusting him to play 2 different positions kind of speaks to what they think of him.
All right, so that's a better explanation, because at first we were thinking, look, are you disappointed that, he has to bump? Because this came from Darius Slay saying, like, hey, he's versatile. He can do things like I couldn't do that. And I was saying, well, Darius Slay didn't have to. Like, right off the get-go, you were good enough to play the outside. They weren't asking you to move to the inside. And I'm wondering if that was the reason why Mitchell is the guy getting bumped to the inside, because that they didn't think he was ready or to supplant Rodgers.
No, exact opposite. And in fact, that they want him to be outside, but they don't feel like they can persevere in the slot until
not a better option.
The team is ramped up.
Right,
yeah.
Not a better option as the other slot guy. Although you have Avonte Maddox, or are they just not? Is he out of the corner room?
Yeah, he's been. Now that Cooper's back, the only ones really taking first team reps in the nickel. Are Quinyon and Cooper. So they've kind of settled with Avonte is a backup safety right now. Now, they still have 90 players until Tuesday. So there's no need to move people around because you have so many bodies. Once you get down to 53, all the cross-training will start. And certainly it wouldn't surprise me if at some point this season Avonte Maddox is in the slot. And they already know he can do that. So it's a matter of getting him up to speed as a backup safety from which is the unfamiliar role for him.
All right, you went chalk with best rookie, but if you took him out of the equation, which rookie other than Mitchell is high on the list?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say the second best rookie is Trevor Keegan, just from a performance standpoint. He's just been kind of solid every day. Obviously, Cooper, second-round pick, barely played, so that's not why he's in the equation. Jalix Hunt is sort of, he's as Vic described it, he did better than he thought he would. So I think he's a little bit ahead of the only a developmental guy track, but I think he's sort of a one-trick pony right now. And then if you look at, I forgot Trotter. Trotter would be number 2. I forgot Trotter. So Trotter and Keegan, the fifth-round picks, everybody was really excited about the 3 fifth-round picks. Anais has not performed well. The other 2 have performed very well. And Trotter's in line of he's in line to get snaps pretty early. I think they're going to get him on the field at least for a few snaps a game. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's playing by mid-season. He's very instinctive, and I think that's what you need to be in the modern game for linebackers. So ultimately, I think it's going to be Nakobe Dean and Jeremiah Trotter. Not week 1, but eventually. I think those are going to be the linebackers getting the most reps.
So who's week 1?
Week 1, I think it's going to be Devin and Nakobe. That would be my guess. But it's interesting, a lot of people, and I get why they do it, you focus on the first rep in practice. And that has been Devin White and Zach Bond for 15 of the 16 practices. But as you've gotten to later in camp, Nakobe's been taking more first-team reps than anybody. So, it might be back to, some of the great 6 men in basketball. Like, it's not who starts, it's who finishes. And he might be, in football, it might be it's not who starts, who gets the most reps. So he might start them, but I think Nakobe's going to get the most reps. Or Devin. Devin's still in that conversation. But I certainly think it's going to be those are the 2 that are going to get the most reps.
John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Your disappointment was CJ Uzomah, and he's not here anymore. So with him being a disappointment, what's left over? Or is that a spot that, because Calcaterra, obviously, draft pick, and it seemed that people liked him, but is that a spot where they're going to look to add?
Yeah, I think it could be. They still need a tight end 3. It looks like Jack Stoll's going to have a difficult time making the Giants, and maybe, who knows, maybe Jack Stoll comes back. But I do think that's a position they could add. E.J. Jenkins has looked pretty good as a receiver. He's a guy who's sort of the big wide receiver in college who's shifting to being a tight end, so he's still got a lot to learn. And, the whole thing is when they signed C.J. Uzomah, who's been playing in this league for a long time, and he was a very good player at one point in Cincinnati, to the point he got a big free agent contract with the Jets, and he was a really good blocker. So you saw that signing and said, well, that makes some sense. That enables you to have the big inline guy. He's 260, 265, and Dallas Goedert can spend more time out as a flex receiver which the Eagles want, and it didn't work out. And now you got a bunch of guys. Calcaterra is more receiver than blocker. Jenkins is more receiver than blocker. If Albert Okwuegbunam ever gets healthy again, he's more receiver than blocker. So you don't really have that big tight end. And that means now Dallas is really good at it, but that means he's got to do it. And I don't know if they want that because he's so effective as a receiver and stretching opposing defenses. So it's a position they might have to go outside the organization.
Interesting, the guy you said was the biggest disappointment is not here anymore, so I guess it's a good sign that there's not or are there guys who are disappointed that are here?
Oh, well, yeah, there's guys. I mean, Anias didn't have a great camp. He has getting a little bit better as things started to close, so he's starting to made a great one-handed catch the other day. So, and obviously Howie's not going to want to cut him. So as long as he shows some life, he's probably going to get an opportunity to stick around and see if he can settle down and improve a little bit. I think most people would go Kenny Pickett because they think he performed very poorly. But one thing I've learned about covering, I don't know, I can't even count anymore, 20-plus training camps in the NFL, second-team reps are always bad. And I have a theory about that defensive line is a rotational position. Offensive line is not. So most teams have a bunch of defensive front players who can play and are used to playing, and they have their 5 offensive linemen, and the other guys struggle.
Right.
So when you get to that second team, the reps are just so muddy and so difficult to judge. I was talking to a scout. I wrote about this earlier this summer, and he said, you got to evaluate the rep before you evaluate the player. And here, the best example of that was last year when Marcus Mariota was here. You heard some of the same things. He was playing shortstop before he was playing quarterback. It was just bad snap after bad shotgun snap. And it would ruin the timing of the rep and the timing of the play, and everybody's like, Mariota stinks and this and that. They're saying the same thing with Pickett. It happens every year, and everybody makes a big deal out of it. But remember, if Kenny Pickett has to play, and you never hope your backup has to play, but if he has to play, he's going to play with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley and that offensive line. It's not going to be behind Brett Toth and Nick Gates,
right?
And Darian Kennard, and I think it's common sense, but I think that gets lost in the sauce with a lot of people.
All right, a couple more with John here on a Friday as they get ready for the Vikings tomorrow. I'll get your thoughts on what you're looking for in that game there. But the injury to Tyler Steen opened up the door for Becton, and he has kind of taken that job. So it looks like the offensive line is all settled there. And behind them will be Saquon Barkley, and you said he's the toughest to figure out. Have they not just shown a lot of what his role is going to be in this offense?
Yeah, well, maybe. It's funny. I don't know what it is about this player, but, people like to make excuses. I don't know how other way to describe it. And I myself count myself in that category. Because early in camp, I found myself, he's not standing out. He's not making plays in practice. They're using him as a decoy mainly. Did make a big catch in Foxborough with the wheel route, so that got some people excited. Couple nice runs, but hasn't really stood out. And I found myself making excuses, saying, well, practices, it's difficult for running backs to stand out. Just you're blowing plays dead. It's not live. You don't get to see, are they going to get out of that tackle? Are they going to make something out of that? And, it's it's certainly partially true. But then when he sat down the other day, Kenny Gainwell's getting first-team reps and making plays all over the place. And even Will Shipley is flashing occasionally. So, I was asking a couple of guys, I'm like, all right, why are they flashing? And why is he not flashing?
Right.
I think it's a fair question. But I haven't seen the explosion. Hopefully it's just what you said. Hopefully it's they're slow playing it. They want him healthy. He's gotten a lot of touches over the years. Really, even forget about the Giants going back to Penn State. Ton of touches, and maybe they're just trying to slow play the whole thing. I think that's got to be your hope at this point.
All right, John McMullen, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, not a whole heck of a lot, but is there anything that intrigues you? Any, particular players that you'll have an eye on tomorrow? Is this just one of those games they got to get through?
Yeah, it's one of those games they got to get through. I mean, the Vikings already have the Eagles, of course, don't admit anything, but the Vikings already admitted they're starting Jaron Hall, who is essentially the 4-string quarterback because J.J. McCarthy got hurt, so, it's going to be a lot of Jaron Hall versus Tanner McKee and maybe even Will Greer. But there are some guys have to play, some of the younger guys, and you just hope you get out healthy, number one. And there's a couple guys that can, make their final case for a roster spot. One is Patrick Johnson. We mentioned Tristan McCullum. I think has had a good camp. Nick Yates, I think, since he got here, has been the best of the veteran offensive linemen. So maybe he can say, keep me around as an insurance policy. So sort of those guys on the bubble that can maybe make their final case to say I should be on this team.
All right, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, you can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. A little Saturday afternoon preseason football. What's better than that? The final tune-up before September the 6th, the Eagles and, of course, the Green Bay Packers. And you can hear that game as well on 97.3 ESPN. All right, John, enjoy the game tomorrow, man. A little home cooking. Going to be a hot one up there.
It's going to be great. At least it's 1 o'clock. That's a positive for us. We'll have to cover the game.
Well, enjoy it, man. You don't have to travel.
That's true.
Take care, man. John McMullen, everybody. And of course, he'll be back on Monday to recap the game. And then Tuesday, it's cutdown day. We'll find out who makes that roster. If you want to take a listen to our 53-man predictions, check out our YouTube channel, and you can check out our conversation with John from Wednesday's show on his 53 predictions. Of course, Jahan Dotson was not here yet. He's here now. How will he fit in, and how did that trade happen? Football at 4 today. Adam Kaplan has the inside scoop on that. When we come back, are you concerned about the Phillies? You'll hear some numbers that will probably make you concerned. Is the Phillies lineup out yet? Well, stick around. We'll have that on the other side here on the Sports Bash Live. By the way, it's happy hour every day at Vagabond till 6 o'clock. We're in EHT. And 3 to 6, happy hour on a Happy Hour Friday. They got unbelievable happy hour specials, nachos, shrimp bangers, buffalo cauliflower, ahi tuna. The roasted Brussels sprouts are probably my pick here. I love the French onion soup. You know me, I like a good French onion soup. They got a good one here. That's all part of the happy hour menu from 3 to 6. They've got 350 Bud Lights with us here. They've also got a whole bunch of other things happening with the potato bombs and the mac and cheese bites and the fish sandwich and the mahi-mahi tacos. They are all on the happy hour menu till 6 o'clock with happy hour pricing. So stop out and see us live. Holy mackerel. Phil's tonight. We'll see if the lineup, it's going to be a late lineup today because it's an 8:10 start. So I'd imagine that lineup is not quite out yet, but we'll keep our eyes on it. That's coming up. Are you concerned about the Phillies? We'll tell you more about that coming up next on the Sports Bash.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Not really. I mean, we got a long way to go. So, I'm more concerned about our club than anything. I'm not really concerned. I look at our club. I say, okay, what do we need to do better? Well, we need to cut down our chases, swings and misses, and put the ball in play and use the field, do things like that. Because we pitched very well in the series.
That was Rob Thompson last night. Is he starting to get concerned? He said, I'm a little concerned about my team. Well, not really concerned. Did he slip up a little? I mean, you're watching this product. Should he be concerned? Scott Lauber from the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote about it over at Inquirer.com. It's starting to get to that point of the season. Getting into September, Scott, and this team is really in the middle of a slump right now, and everybody keeps asking, can they do anything to shake it up? Is there something they can do? I don't know that there's an obvious move. They just got to hope they pull out of this thing, right?
Yeah, I think you just hit on it. The roster is what it is, and it's not going to change. It wasn't going to change dramatically at the trade deadline either. They are pretty much a team that is built to win the World Series. They improved on the margins with Austin Hayes, with Carlos Estevez, but they are who they are. And I thought, maybe the most revealing thing that was said all season so far is right before the deadline when Bryce Harper was asked, has this team done enough to improve itself? And he said, yeah, the superstars have to show up, and they have not shown up. It wasn't just these 3 games in Atlanta. It's been for a while now, really since the All-Star break, that Schwarber, Turner, Harper have not been the players that we're used to seeing. So they've got to snap out of it. And if they do, I think this team's got a chance to go deep in the playoffs again. If they don't, it's going to be an early exit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. We got people, obviously, they're texting in. They want changes. They got to shake something up. You got to do something. And I said, really, what can you do to this lineup? I mean, if you shuffle the top 4, they're the guys struggling the most. You got the group of people, Scott, that want to try to move Schwarber to the middle of the lineup. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I don't know that it accomplishes it all that much if Turner, Schwarber, and Harper are as cold as they are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was in Atlanta, and after the game last night, was talking to several people in the clubhouse, and one of the things that stuck with me was, Trey Turner kind of shaking his head and saying, it's weird. And weird was a word he returned to a couple of times. It's weird that they're all in it at the same time. Usually you've got a guy or 2 who aren't hitting, and, you've got 2 or 3 other guys who are, and they kind of pick everybody up, and that has not happened. They've all kind of gone into this funk at the same time. And when that happens, it's hard to win. It doesn't usually happen. I asked Trey Turner if he sees any common denominators or common themes. He said not necessarily. Everyone's kind of individualized. He looked at himself and he said, I missed some fastballs in the Atlanta series, especially last night, that are hittable pitches that I felt like I could have hit. It's been happening a lot lately. I do think that there's a pattern developing. I think teams are attacking the Phillies with off-speed. I wrote a story today about Brandon Marsh and Bryson Stott, who have not had good seasons, have taken steps backward. And Stott was talking about how he's getting pitched backwards this year, that last year it was a lot of fastballs early in the count. And he worked a lot of deep counts last year, and he got to a place where he could either hit off speed or he could hit fastballs late in the count, and he did very well at that. And they wanted him to be more aggressive this year, so he's doing that. But as a result, he's seeing that pitchers are pitching him reverse. He gets a lot of off speed early in the count, fastballs later, and I think that's sort of common of really a lot of them. Off speed early, trying to get them to chase, trying to get them to get themselves out. And then then the pitcher surprises you with a heater later in the count when you're expecting off speed. So it's kind of become a familiar pattern. The Phillies have to figure out a way to combat it, because until they do, teams are going to continue to attack them that way.
Yep, that seems to be one of the issues here. And, one thing too, Scott, right, the top of the order is struggling. I feel like all season long, they have just not been able to find that 5 guy, the guy to hit behind Bohm. It's, it's Real Muto. Then it was Marsh. Now it's Castellanos. And it just doesn't seem, as you wrote about, Marsh and Stoddard had a good season. So there's not a lot of length to this lineup either. So when the top is really struggling, you are really hitting a bump in the road.
Yeah. And look, and let's be real about it too. Like, even if Stott and Marsh were having the years they had last year, it is still a lineup that is very dependent on the top 4. And I put Alec Bohm in that group because he's been as consistent as anyone all year long. But it's really Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm. And if those guys are going with Castellanos lower in the order, then they're going to score a lot of runs. And as I said, you normally expect 2 or 3 of them to be going simultaneously, even if a couple of them are struggling, and that's just not the case.
No, and, I don't know if there's something they can do to shake something up. Do they tweak, move, do something? But it doesn't seem that there's a lot of options. And part of that, Scott, is at the trade deadline. Look, Austin Hayes, I guess he'll be back tonight. He's a nice player. But should they have gone bigger than a player like Austin Hayes?
I've thought a lot about that, even at the deadline. Thinking about, is this enough? And I was sort of inclined to say no. And then I'm talking to people around the league who were looking at what the Phillies had done, and they said, boy, they've added a couple of players to a team that's really good already. And, you're not, if you're the Phillies, you're not looking to add, where are you going to add, kind of a difference maker? Or who was the difference maker who was available to add, I guess, is the better way to put it. I mean, I guess they could have gone slightly bigger and gone after Randy Arozarena. It's not like he's the answer. I think when Dave Dombrowski looked at the market, he kind of saw very few what he likes to call difference makers. He uses that word a lot. He wants difference makers. If he's going to trade a real top chip from his farm system, he wants a difference-making player in return. And, Tariq Skubal did not get traded. Neither did Garrett Crochet. Neither did Luis Robert. Neither did Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Bo Bichette. So, a lot of the guys who were, sort of the quote-unquote sexy names going into the deadline ended up staying put. So I don't really know that there's a player out there who did get moved at the deadline who you could look at and go, boy, that guy would look nice on the Phillies right now, because there just weren't a whole lot of – there were a lot of players who got traded, but there weren't a whole lot of difference-making players. And so I'm not really sure, especially if we're talking about the lineup, where you go that's a whole lot better than Austin Hayes.
Yeah, I guess the one guy was Rooker. I don't know how available he was. Obviously right before the break, he hammers you. I don't know. He didn't get traded, so maybe he wasn't available. But was it a case of the Phillies just didn't want to give up too much?
In that specific case, I'm not entirely sure. Like you said, he didn't get moved, so my sense is that Oakland was asking a lot in return. He's a controllable player for, I think, 5 more years. So it's not like a rental piece. It's not even like a year-plus piece. So they were out there looking not just for Rooker, but for Mason Miller. They were looking for multiple top prospects. And I also think in the Phillies case, they looked at Rooker and said, where's he going to play? He's been primarily a DH this year. He's not that good of an outfielder. Guess you could have put him in left field and then switched him out for defense late. But, they've got a full-time DH in Kyle Schwarber. He's not going to left field anytime soon. So I don't know if Rooker was a positional fit for them either, even if the cost had been lower.
Scott Lauber, a couple more real quick. Phillies bullpen for a couple days there. It was, oh, boy, now the bullpen's an issue. Alvarado, that one seems to be separate, but is the bullpen in your mind an issue?
Probably lower down on the list. We're talking a lot about the offense. I think Alvarado is a big issue. He goes out there the other night and he faces 6 guys. He walks 4 of them. And, he did not look like somebody who had a whole lot of answers after the game in terms of what was happening or what was going wrong. We know his command leaves him now and then. Usually, at least the last couple of years, he's been able to lock it in pretty quick when it does leave him. So we'll see how he rebounds. I think they're going to try to get him into some lower leverage spots to get him back on track. So we'll see how that goes. But Estevez is not throwing as many strikes as he was throwing earlier in the year with the Angels. Kerkering has had a few days off. He looked a whole lot better the last, Tuesday night and Wednesday night in Atlanta. So they think they've gotten him back on track. Strom and Hoffman, I still trust a great deal. So, look, I think you want Alvarado straightened out. You want Stevis locked in, and all of a sudden that bullpen looks better. It's sort of like the lineup, we're talking about how everybody kind of goes south at the same time. In a good bullpen, maybe you've got a guy here and there struggling, but the rest of the guys are humming right along, and I think that's the place they want to get back to.
What's the pitching going to look like after this weekend here? You got a TBD listed as one of the days.
Yeah, so we're in the middle right now of a stretch of 22 games in 23 days, and if there was a time to go to a six-man rotation, it would probably be now. They have some reservations about it because it does, when you go to a six-man rotation, it does leave your bullpen one man short. And if you're going to go with a guy or two in the rotation who don't give you as much length, that can leave you in an uncomfortable position. So, one of the things they want to do is it's going to be Walker tonight. It's going to be Suarez tomorrow. Then they get to Sunday. And if at all possible, they'd like to give everybody at least one extra day on this turn. And so my sense yesterday was that they were leaning toward either calling someone up to make a spot start or going with a bullpen game on Sunday. That would give Wheeler, Nola, et cetera, right on down through, Suarez and his next turnaround, an extra day. And I don't know if they'll do it a second time. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Like I said, they're in the middle of this stretch of a lot of games with one day off, 22 of 23. So they can afford to maybe do it twice and kind of give these guys a little bit of a breather. Because to me, like we're talking about all these other issues, the lineup and the bullpen and whatnot. To me, there is nothing at all more important to them than keeping their starters healthy and sharp. And, if you've got three or, if you've got three, you're in great shape. If you've got four, you're the favorite to win the whole thing. If you've got three or four starters who are clicking going into the playoffs, who are really, really sharp and really, really strong, then you're a tough team to knock out. And I think that's the point they want to get to. It's the point they were at in each of the last 2 years. They really had the rotation going at the right time, and that's why they made the runs that they did. So I think that is the most important thing, especially with still a 6-game cushion here. I know it doesn't feel that way, but they have a 6-game cushion. They can afford to maybe go to a sixth man once or twice, and give everybody a little bit of a breather.
All right, Scott Lauber from the Inquirer. It's the Phillies and the Royals this weekend as the Phillies obviously struggling along. They did get that one down there, which was needed, and they will be in Kansas City. Taijuan Walker and Michael Wacha as your pitching matchup for tonight. We'll see what the Phillies lineup looks like when that is out. Scott, thank you so much, man.
All right, thanks.
All right, Scott Lauber, as always, from the Philadelphia Inquirer, covers the Phillies. It's Phillies with Walker tonight. 3-4 with a 5.69 ERA, 151 WHIP. Those numbers are rotten. Those numbers aren't good. Wacha 10-6, 3.33 ERA, 121 WHIP. He's been pretty solid there for the Phillies. Minus 137 for the Royals, plus 116 for the Phillies. Over under 9 runs. It's a 3-game series. Kansas City, they won like 50 games last year. Was it 56 games, I think, the Royals won last year? They've won 70 games right now, 71. The Royals have 71 wins this season. They won 56 games all of last year. They are in the American League wildcard. Philadelphia has 74 wins on the season. They're 32-30 on the road. Kansas City, a good home team, 40-26. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday. Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House EHT. Now, we've got the 99 bottles sign-ups. I think a couple people have already got in on that. But there's some more slots left. If you want to get in this year's 99 bottles party, stop out, see Madison. She's sitting right in front of me. We're kind of, if you ever been to Vagabond EHT, when you come in, there's that little cutout in the back where like the dartboards are. We're back in that section over there. So stop out and sign up for 99 bottles, David Spade tickets, $3.50 Bud Light. I want to thank Bud Light for being a part of the summer tour for Bud Light for the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday 15th anniversary show. And we'll be all over. In fact, we know where we're going to be next week. Next Friday, for Happy Hour Friday, going down to Cape May County, Jester's Dive Bar in Rio Grande. Yes, we're going down to Cape May County for all our friends down there. So make an appointment to see us there as well. That's next Friday for Happy Hour Friday. But this Friday, we're at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. They have their Happy Hour specials going on until 6 o'clock. And you can come out and see us live when we come back here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Why did Washington want to trade for Dotson? We'll have Adam Kaplan at 4 o'clock. That's all still to come on the Sports Bash.
It's this with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Live at Vagabond. Yes, this hour brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning. Your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, insulation. 609-390-3907. Online, broadleafs.net. So, we're out on location, which we don't get to do all the time, but every Friday, and you get to meet a couple people. So my man George stopped by. Now, George said he's been listening since I was on 1450 AM. He used to go to school on the bus, and he'd get off the bus, listen to Mike and Mike, and then here I was on the afternoon. He's now in his 30s, half of his life. Here I am, and I'm still sitting here. So thanks, George. My man Shaner in EHT just stopped by to say hello. Now, apparently I used to work with Shaner, and I did not know this. I did a little tour of on the television side for about 3 weeks, and he was working there, so I did not know that. But good to see you, Shaner. I said you guys are sticking around, the 350 Bud Lights or whatever, we're hanging out. They got a great happy hour menu, Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. Now, my guy Jeff will be here soon. Jeff from Vagabond. I hope he's on his way over here because I can't wait to see him. I haven't seen him in a while. Now, Kevin's here working. I actually traveled with Kevin once to Philly spring training. Kevin and I went to the Clearwater Aquarium, and we were wasted. We drank all day and then thought it was a smart idea to walk to the aquarium in Clearwater. Not smart. Two wasted guys at the Clearwater Aquarium. It's a small little place. But there was a movie film there. The one, the movie, Josh, with the dolphin? I don't know. That sounds like a TV, I don't know. There was a movie with the dolphin, and the dolphin was, injured.
Free Willy?
I don't know. But they is it Free Willy? I don't know.
But Free Willy was a whale, maybe not a dolphin. So. Yeah,
they filmed the movie. There's parts of the movie they filmed in that aquarium. So, well, Kevin, who's working here, he and I went to the aquarium together one day after putting in a nice shift at the Clearwater Tap House. We said, hey, what should we do now? You want to walk to the aquarium? All right, football at 4 is coming up next. On the other side, why did Washington want to trade Dotson? Adam Kaplan discusses that and what to look for in tomorrow afternoon's Eagles-Vikings game. Next.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I give my heart and soul to this franchise, as so many of us do.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
I'm surprised Jahan didn't grab on a little bit more in Washington. I called a couple of his college football games, and he was such a good route runner, so sudden, in and out of cuts, being able to go deep. His hands were so strong, being able to make some contested catches, a guy that was really good down in the red zone. But now he doesn't have to be that number 2 option. I mean, he really gets to be with A.J. Devontae and Dallas Goedert. If Dotson just replicates what he did at that number 3 wide receiver spot, I don't know of anybody in the NFC that can line up and play man-to-man coverage against those 4 pass catchers.
That was Dan Orlovsky, as it's time for Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan. And, of course, it's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. You can get on all podcasting platforms. And don't forget to search their YouTube channel, Inside the Birds, as they get ready for a big football season with the Eagles. They got one more preseason game tomorrow. We'll get into that. But you heard what Dan Orlovsky said about Dotson coming here now. So let's go inside this Dotson trade a little deeper, Adam Kaplan. We'll get your thoughts on the deal, on why the Eagles decided to give up a third-rounder to go get a third wide receiver.
Yeah, and I know that they had 2 third-rounders, but the point is they gave a third-rounder, as you said, Mike. So, look, I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand this. We noticed in social media, Jeff and I, Mosher and I, put a lot of information out for Patreon. Really interesting, high-level information, intel on what both teams were thinking. But you just got to understand something, Mike. It's one thing to look at a depth chart or the unofficial depth chart that clubs send you, but it's another thing to actually be there in training camp. I remember the first couple of days that I went to Eagles training camp, I'm like, who in the world is going to be their third? If Paris Campbell doesn't win it, they don't have anyone on the roster. And Paris Campbell, he got hurt. He got benched, as we reported back in March. The Giants benched him for performance based on practice. So I wasn't sold on Paris Campbell. It was worth a shot. They liked the player in 2019 for the draft. He's failed to impress. So my thinking was, Mike, and we've known this behind the scenes, there were other players they were looking at other than Dotson, but they had to do something. People will say, I put this out on Twitter or X yesterday, that they're in dire straits at number 3 receiver. This is not me telling you this, guys. They gave up a third-round pick for a receiver. They're telling you that they didn't trust who they had. They gave you the answers. It's not me. It's them telling you this. I don't know why, Mike, people couldn't understand this. Any reporter who's at practice knew this is a major problem. Not a problem, a major issue. As a NFL team needs a third receiver, you need, A, because when you go 11 personnel, you need a third, and B, if one of your 2 starters gets hurt, you need somebody else. They didn't have that guy. They're not depending on Paris Campbell. Smartly enough, Howie Roseman did a smart thing here. We'll get into Washington's side talking to them, but the Eagles had to do something, Mike. This was by far the biggest issue for the football team. Inside backer, they got a lot of them, but they're not good enough there. But they have enough guys. The Eagles did not have a third or even a fourth receiver. We don't know who the 4 will be right now. Right now, probably going to be Johnny Wilson, but it's not a lock.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the receiver room now look like? Okay, you got your 3, but you still have quite, if Smith or Brown got hurt, now what?
All right, so let's break it down from an Eagles standpoint. Dotson definitely will be Devontae Smith's backup. Dotson, I'm told, is a Z receiver, not an X. He's not physical enough to play that X position. That's really where you're not moving. You generally line up on one side. You're not in motion much. Where Smith will be moved a lot for matchup purposes. Dotson's not the most physical guy. He could run though. So Dotson's clearly the 3. Right now, they got to figure out, is Paris Campbell going to be be on the football team, and B, is he going to be A.J. Brown's backup? Will it be Johnny Wilson, who now has a concussion? Wilson was, I would say, slightly ahead of schedule before his injury, but you don't know how many snaps he could handle. And this is what I've learned many years ago, Mike, with coaches. They tell you, as many have said to me, what's our answer if our starter gets hurt? Well, the Eagles were not happy with their answer for a backup for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's why they decided to give up significant compensation. Giving up a third-round pick is a lot for a backup player. But I want to add one more thing. Your number 3 receiver typically is a guy who might catch 30 to 40 passes, or just when you go 3 wide, okay, that's what you're going to do. But let's understand something with Kellen Moore's offense, Mike. If Kellen Moore, as one of his former coaches with the Cowboys told me about a week and a half ago when I ran into one on my training camp tour, Kellen's base offense is 11 personnel. That's what he wants. He could not run his offense efficiently without that guy. Now, Britton Covey did a really good job. He's also very small. He's been a great story, Mike, of development as a slot receiver only. Dotson could play inside or outside. They had to do something, Mike, to move this forward here. They didn't have a choice. They had to do it. This was obvious they were going to do something. There was no one on the street that they were looking at that was ready to go. They could have waited to see if someone's cut who they liked. But typically when guys are cut, Mike, there's some kind of an issue. But we'll get to Washington's problems with Dotson in a minute, or why they wanted to move him. But this is a smart move for Howie. Yeah, you'd rather not give up a third-round pick, but Mike, if you think you're a good playoff team or being a playoff team, you can't go with what you had, and they didn't. They knew this.
All right, Adam Kaplan, football at 4. So, as you've hinted at, why did Washington make this deal? This is a first-round pick, 16th overall. Why are they willing to give up on it?
All right, so, Mike, for those of us who cover the league from a national standpoint, who have good sources with Washington, I could just tell, based on just conversations with people, close the situation, based on the way that Dotson played last season. And remember, Adam Peters, the new GM, inherited this player. He didn't draft him. So it's kind of like with Omar Khan, the GM of the Steelers. He didn't draft Kenny Pickett. Kevin Colbert, his last draft, he drafted Kenny Pickett. He had no allegiance to Pickett. So after they saw Pickett play last season, Pittsburgh felt that they were not going to go any farther with Pickett. And after what Dotson did, not only last season, I'm told, it was also practice-related in their off-season program and obviously in training camp. As one other team told me, they were absolutely motivated to move him. They clearly didn't want him. And it's also curious, why in the world would you try to help a team that you're competing with? We could also argue, how good is Washington going to be? We know the Eagles are way better than them, at least on paper. They should be. But why would you do that? And it's fair game to bring it up. That's not a good sign. But I know Washington did not want the player, Mike. I'm going to leave it at that. We have way more information for Patreon, and also in we did a sort of emergency half-an-hour special show for them. We also covered more on our Monday morning show, when we drop our final 53. But it's fair to question it, Mike, on Dotson. But the guy's a good football player. He, as one person said, he probably needed to change the scenery. He was not wanted there. He's not a bad guy off the field, by the way. I want to make that clear. Mm-hmm. His performance was just not good enough. I knew this when I was there in August. It was my first camp tour site other than Eagles when I got on the road. I could tell that, it's funny, when you hear Olamide Zaccheaus is doing better than Dotson, I'm like, okay, really?
Jeez.
And apparently he's been a story for camp for them, and they didn't want Dotson. I'll leave it at that.
Well, as you heard Orlovsky said, he saw him in college, and look, he was the 16th pick, good route runner, strong hands. He's had drop problems, and that's been something for him. So see if the change of scenery helps out Dotson as the number 3 wide receiver. He won't be in tomorrow's game, but what are some of the things to look for Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock, Eagles-Vikings?
Yeah, it's such an odd time, and the weather's going to be great, by the way, if you're going to the link. So between Kenny Pickett, and we know Tanner McKee could do it. And look, they got to be able to protect Pickett. I'm not going to put all the blame on him for what's happened in the preseason with the taking too many hits, sacks, and so forth, and pressure. But I want to see them throw the ball downfield much more, Mike. And I know it's preseason, but still, it's their last chance to do it. One of the things that stood out to me in training camp, which is just baffling, because I know Kellen Moore's scheme very well and talking to coaches who work with him. He attacks all parts of the field. He wants to be a vertical pass caller. He sure was he wanted to be with the Chargers, but he lost a lot of players at the receiver position. But at his heart, he wants to throw the ball downfield. We didn't see a lot of that. Now, for whatever reason, I want to see that in this game. I know it's preseason, but again, it's a real football. This is actually not practice. This is an actual game. I want to see them call some stuff downfield. Now, we know that Wilson's got the concussion. John Ross has a concussion. Whether it's Joseph Ngata, Austin Watkins, Jacob Harris, just can you throw it past 10 yards and protect? They got to protect better, Mike. And that was disappointing that they could not protect a little better, so we're hopeful that'll be better. So that's one thing. I like to see them expand the pass game more. Also, the backup group of offensive linemen. We know Keegan's got an injury. Matt Hennessy's got an injury. Stevens got an injury. He's going to back up Becton. Brett Toth needs snaps. Max Sharping is probably a long shot. Here's one that just came up the last week. I would have not even remotely considered Nick Gates being on the team, Mike, but because of injury, he's got some reps with the ones, certainly with the twos. This guy's got center, guard positional versatility, though I am told that he clearly is better off at guard than center, but nevertheless, this guy's a veteran. I want to see him get snaps. Dylan McMahon, who's very small, but guy was drafted. Let's try to settle on some of these roles here. We know Fred Johnson will be the backup left tackle. Could Derek Kennard secure a spot? So let's see these guys play well and see how they line up.
Flip over to the defensive side of the ball. I would assume, like, you gave a bunch of stuff on offense. Is the defense more settled, actually?
This is a good question, Mike. This inside backer job, now, if they surprise us and play the starters, I don't see it. But look, if they did, because remember that a lot of the defensive starters have played in the first 2 games. So if they do that and play the inside backers, let's see them settle. Look, we know Bond is still technically ahead of Dean, and that theoretically that'll be at least week 1. But let's put them in advantageous situations.
Do you subscribe? John McMullen thinks it's a conspiracy theory that as soon as the media gets shut out of practice, they're going to make that switch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
John said that. I saw him. He and I chatted last week, but we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, he thinks as soon as the media is shut out, they'll switch Dean and Bond at the linebacker spot.
I'm surprised. I've never heard of a team doing that. Not quite like that's been set up, but it is odd. He's not taking a T.J. Edwards type of jump over the last 2.5 weeks. Ever since that practice at the link where he struggled, I'm gonna, you and I talked about this when it happened.
Yep.
Something happened. Maybe he watched the tape and he goes, "Oh my, what is wrong? What am I doing here?" Ever since then, he's been their best inside backer. I'd bet the house. Okay, I bet the house he'll eventually wind up taking the job from Bond. I can't tell you when that's going to happen. But Trotter's flashed. He's the most instinctive linebacker they have at the inside backer of the inside linebacker group. He's smaller. I get it. He's not a great athlete. So we'd like to see them kind of settle in a rotation here. But also the backup group. The other one is 57 Van Sumeren, who is they're probably the fastest linebacker. This guy, someday, Mike, he might wind up being a starter. Look, it's a long shot, but we know that tape against the Giants last year was intriguing. This is a great find for the Eagles. You got to give their scouting staff, whoever has that area, that's a great job of scouting. Now, is he a lock to make the roster? No, but I think he's a pretty good bet to do it. We'll put our 53 out on Monday. He's another guy that, look, let's see what he's got here. And Burks, by the way, just came back. Now, I don't know that he'll play because he just came back to practice this week, but, Mike, as we get through this and finish this off, they really need to settle on this thing. It's just not I know it's not the greatest group overall, and they all have some sort of issue, but I'd like them to settle on something that they could get enough out of.
All right, last one would be Cooper DeJean, and he's back, and does he have a role, and will we see him tomorrow?
I don't know why he wouldn't play. He started doing more this week. And it's not just this game, Mike. I don't know that they know what they're going to do. We know he's not playing safety. He confirmed that. And we get it. They want him to be a corner. Well, I'm sorry. They want him. I got to speak like Fangio here. They want to be a nickel. But I would tell you, Mike, and I know I know Vic won't call it a safety, but he's played inside backer. How do I know that? Because in big nickel, you could call it whatever you want to call it. I put this in my notes. They had Maddox and DeJean as jack linebackers. That's a coaching term. One was the jack and one was the other position, whatever they want to call it. That was an interesting formation. I think Vic would probably call it big nickel. But DeJean was in the box as a linebacker, and he's a superior athlete. I'm very curious, Mike, the way this is to me the most intriguing issue. For me, I can't speak for Mosher, but fans should be, because this kid is a baller. I know he's had some injuries, but he could be a difference maker. I just don't know exactly what they're going to do with him other than not playing him at safety. Is he going to be a nickel? Is he going to be a nickel roving player? Are you going to use him as a slot corner? How are you going to use him, Mike? I mean, we don't know that yet. I'm very intrigued.
All right, we'll all see it tomorrow, maybe for the first time. Cooper DeJean and the Eagles make their final preseason appearance. It's 1:00 right here on 97. Now, who's going to that game tomorrow instead of going to the beach for the last time?
I'm sorry?
Hey, who's going to the Eagles game tomorrow over going to the beach down the shore for the last time?
Yeah, I know. I get it. I mean, plus, I guess 1:00. Well, you can go in the morning, of course, and then just drive to, just drive. But
jeez. All right. Well, Adam, have fun. Are you going to the game tomorrow? You covering the game?
No. I tape it. There's just no reason to because we get our information the way we get it. But I'm a junkie though. I will watch every play and go over it and write notes. It's just it's kind of the way I am.
I'll have it on. I'm just, I'm not going. That's all. But if anybody's going, enjoy it. If not, you can listen to it right here on 97.3. All right, Adam, we'll talk to you Tuesday, pal.
You got it, too.
Adam's back on Tuesday for football at 4. We are live Monday at Ocean Casino at the Gallery Bar, Book, and Games. We'll be there every Monday for the football season. Bob Wankel will join me on Mondays, and we will be live there this Monday. And, of course, you can stop out there. We today are live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. And as I say this, in Egg Harbor Township, by the way, they have the Atlantic City one and the EHT one. We're in EHT. As I say that, I got an email from the Phillies. They have reinstated Austin Hayes from the injured list, and Cal Stevenson has been optioned to Lehigh Valley. So I would imagine Hayes is back in the lineup tonight. I don't think the lineup is out quite yet, but I would imagine they activated him, and then the next step would be to write him into the lineup tonight, which doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for me. But, yes, he got returned from his rehab assignment, and to make room for him, Cal Stevenson's option to Lehigh Valley. So now you have another guy into this mix here, right? Josh, we were talking about this yesterday. You got a right-handed pitcher pitching tonight. So Hayes is a right-handed hitter. I imagine he's in the lineup, but if he's in the lineup, that means now either Weston Wilson or Rojas is out of the lineup. And right. I would imagine Marsh is playing center field, and Hayes, I guess, is in left field tonight, right? I mean, is that what we're thinking? We're just going to go with Old Faithful?
I guess, but I don't like that idea at all.
So what are you doing?
To me, I think the answer is yes, you need to put Weston Wilson on the bench because obviously he can't play third base and he can only play left field. If you're going to bring Hayes in... Well,
you also... I can't imagine you want to bench Bohm for the second day in a row, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so Wilson at third is out. You could play Wilson at second, I guess, but I would imagine if you're going to play anybody at second other than Stott, it would be Sosa, but I would imagine Stott, it's a right-handed pitcher tonight, so I'd imagine Stott's still in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming, because I keep looking for the lineup and I haven't seen it yet, but my assumption is if Hayes is in the lineup, then Marsh is probably in center, and I'm not a fan of that.
Well, I mean, it's a right-handed pitcher. I mean, would you rather just say, Marsh, you're struggling, you need a day off, and you're not even going to face, because you have a stretch of righties here. We talked about this yesterday.
Right.
They have a stretch of righties up until, I think it's August 31st. They will not face a left-handed pitcher until the Braves series again when they face Max Fried.
That's correct.
So there's no lefty in the Royals series, no lefty in the Astros series. They will not face a lefty again until I think it's August 31st. So essentially you could get Marsh and Stott. You could look at it two ways. That they get a little 10-day run here to get going, or you say, you know what, we're even going to start sitting you against some of these righties.
I mean, for me, I don't even know if how excited are you to put Hayes even back in the lineup if you're the Phillies? I mean, do you really look at Austin Hayes as the guy who's going to really help this lineup at this point?
Well, come on now. Let's be honest. No, I don't think that. But you don't trade for a guy and then just say, we're not even going to use you. I mean, you gave up some decent – I mean, I get it. Pache is a nothing burger, and we talked about this on the Nuggets yesterday. Dominguez has been pretty good for them. So you gave up something of – it wasn't like you gave up a single-A pitcher that's never going to make it. You traded something to get this guy. It wasn't to not play him.
Correct. But, I mean, do you have to play him tonight? Do you play him every day this weekend?
He's back. Yeah, he's back in the lineup. He's reinstated. You play him.
Well, he's reinstated, but, I mean, is he – do you view them – do you think they think Hayes is an everyday player?
Yes.
If that's the case, then I'm assuming Marsh is in center field.
Wait a second. Don't you think they view him as an everyday – I mean, when he's been here, he's played every day.
I mean, they keep messing with these guys in the lineup and their spots, and, you know, they
Yeah, but he wasn't one of them. When he got here, he was hitting sixth, I think, against left-handers, and he was batting ninth against right-handers. So he's played every day. It's just his spot in the lineup has changed. Now, we can make it's a different conversation of I don't agree with them, or I don't think. And so when I asked Scott Lauber, or maybe it was McGarry, I think it was Lauber. Did they do enough at the deadline?
Yeah, you asked Lauber.
Was Austin Hayes enough? And I think we could say the answer to that is no. But they might disagree with us.
I think they do disagree with this, despite the fact that I think that Mike, this reminds me of Daryl Morey and the Sixers. They thought they did enough getting Buddy Hield, and then at the end of the season they realized, yeah, we didn't do enough.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, Buddy Hield, he's a guy, we think he was the best player out there. We went and got him, and then you realize he wasn't the guy you thought. Much like the Phillies. Austin Hayes, the guy we tried to get before. We really liked him, and now you got him, and you're hitting him ninth. I mean, this team is not a team that needed to add a 9-hole hitter, right? I think we all can agree on that.
Correct.
This team is a team that needed a guy really to hit probably in the 4 spot or the 5 spot. They're 4 and 5s. Look, their 4 is fine. Bohm isn't the problem, but he's miscast it as a guy hitting in the middle of your lineup. The perfect world, he's hitting 5, 6, somewhere in there, right?
Right.
You go out and make a trade for a guy, you're saying, we need to help our offense. Well, you got a guy that's hitting at the bottom half. It doesn't help your team. And let's be honest, Austin Hayes is a 260 hitter with not a lot of power. I don't know where they thought this guy was going to help the offense.
By the way, to your point, so he appeared in 10 of the 11 games since he was acquired by the Phillies before going on the injured list.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that they think of him as an everyday player, and we said we don't like it, but he's hitting 7th against lefties and 9th when they have a right-hander. Now, you might flip-flop that or do whatever you want, but they didn't need a 7, 8, 9 hitter. They needed a 4, 5, or 6 hitter.
They absolutely need a 5 hitter. To me, that was
obvious. And it's because, listen, Castellanos has $100 million. That doesn't get called out enough sometimes. I think people forget. Castellanos signed a $100 million deal.
Yes, he did.
He got a 5-year, $100 million deal. He's making $20 million a year to be about as mediocre as you can be. He is about 250 with 16 home runs. I mean, that is about as mediocre as you can get.
And it's frustrating because if you give out that kind of money, you're expecting a better return on your investment.
Well, I say this a lot. I'll bring it up right now because I haven't said it in a while. But when they signed him from Cincinnati, he was coming off a year where he hit over 300 with over 30 home runs and about 100 RBI. You didn't get that guy in any of his 3 seasons here. None of them.
Right.
None of them. Right? I remember exactly where I was when they signed him. I was talking about earlier, by the way, it was A Dolphin's Tale was the movie that was shot at the Clearwater Aquarium. Dolphin's Tale. When they signed Castellanos, I was in an Uber ride from the Tampa airport on my way to Clearwater Beach. I'm sitting in the back of the cab or the Uber, and they made that signing. I said, oh my God, they just signed Castellanos. That's unbelievable. I couldn't believe it because they got Schwarber right before that.
And you thought because of your reaction, because of his background, you thought he'd be more of an impact player because
there's no part of you that thought he was going to be this guy.
None at all.
You thought this guy hit 300 with 30 home runs. I don't know what exactly, but he hit over 30 and had about 100 RBI. You're thinking, hey, I'm getting a guy that's going to hit 285 with 28 homers and 100 ribbies, and he's going to hit right in the number 5 spot in this order, or the number 4 spot, really. And that never happened. I mean, he just never was that guy for this team. Now, he was that guy in the series against the Braves last year, right?
True.
He was scorching hot in that series. 424, happy hour Friday, Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House EHC. They have happy hour here till 6 o'clock. All sorts of great prices on wings, tenders, nachos, Brussels sprouts, quesadillas, chips and guac, cauliflower, ahi, tuna, shrimp bangers. $3.50 Bud Light drafts at the bar. Also $5 neutral vodka orange drinks. They've got all sorts of specials. Potato bombs. You ever try those potato bombs? They're unbelievable. They've got the mac and cheese bites, mahi tacos. They're all on special here at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House up until 6 o'clock when we get off the air. So stop out right here. Don't forget, we've got tickets to David Spade. You can sign up to go see him at Ocean Casino Resort. We've also got 99 bottles. You can get into the 99 bottles this year. That's all right here, Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House, Egg Harbor Township on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3. Knicks Nuggets are coming up next.
We have the traffic. You come with me. The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
4:32 on a happy hour Friday. You can get all the happy hour specials till 6 o'clock. Vagabond's got the happy hour every day. And I enjoy all of the menu items, but I'm going to pick out the old French onion soup, my old go-to here. And what else am I going to go with here? Let's see. Well, I know that probably go little wings and some French onion soup. All right, it's time for another edition of Nick's Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw is in the house today. And, of course, a lot of people, Nick Earnshaw, are worried about the Phils.
Yeah, it was not a good one last night. Offense struggled once again. I mean, you end the game with your 3 through 5 hitters all striking out. Was it on 12 pitches, I believe it was? So, not a beautiful sight if you're an offensive person. I like pitching duels, but when it's going the other way, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think most people are either.
3, 4, 5 struck out in the 9th on 12 pitches. They were a collective 13 of 89 with 32 strikeouts, the lineup against the Braves.
Yeah, not so great at all. And you know what? I asked the question today, did they peak too early? It's a question that I think people are starting to it's starting to creep in people's minds a little bit here. It's been so prolonged, this streak. They've lost 8 series since July 11th. I mean, that's a struggle. That's not just a little bit of a rut now. It's become prolonged, and the offense has struggled mightily. I mean, all the strikeouts going on. Something's happening here. Are they gassed? I mean, they've been to a World Series. They've been to an LCS. Now another long season here. Could that be another factor? Maybe. And and I will start with nugget number 1. I want to talk about a quote from Trey Turner, Mike. He said, "It's kind of weird that we're all struggling at the same time. Normally when you have a good lineup, some guys struggle here or there, but it's kind of weird that a lot of us are there." And that was a headline in the Philadelphia Inquirer today. Weird. That was the first word in the headline. It has been weird because they're all really, really talented players.
But this isn't weird.
Why is it weird? It is weird though.
It's not weird. It's because it's the same thing that happened in Arizona last year. It's the same thing that happened in Houston in the World Series. It's not weird. This is what keeps happening, is that you get a bunch of guys all go cold at the same time, and it ends up costing you in the biggest moments. This is not weird if it's already happened before.
No, it's weird in the sense of this, right? I look at it a little bit differently. Yes, it's happened multiple times. We've seen it happen. It doesn't make it less weird, because how do you have every single player who's a high paid player, high salary guy, all go cold at the same time? I understand they're all streaky hitters, but how does this happen 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in a row where all of your best players all of a sudden just can't hit? They can't figure out how to find a way to get on base, drive the baseball to a gap, hit a home run somewhere. That's what's weird about it. I understand it keeps happening, but the fact it keeps happening is the weird part. Like, you'd think it would just happen. All right, maybe it happened in 22. All right, it happened last year too. But then it keeps happening. That's the weird part of it to me.
Yeah, I guess our definition of what's weird, if something continues to happen, it's no longer weird. Now it keeps happening. If it happened like right now, a bunch of guys, Schwarber, Harper, Turner, Castellanos, were all cold, you'd be like, that's kind of weird that all of those guys. No, I've already seen this story. It's no longer weird. Now it keeps happening.
See, my definition's a little different. That's just where I differ from you. I think it's weird that it keeps happening because they're all talented. They're all all-star level players. All guys who could potentially win MVP, like a Harper, a Turner. Those guys can win MVPs. The fact that it keeps happening is weird. So I'm with Turner on this one, that they keep struggling at the same time. Because usually guys will go in ruts for a little bit here, but another guy will pick them up. Like he mentioned, we see that's just how baseball works. It's the fact that they all at the same time keep going through all of these cold streaks. That's what's weird to me, that it happens over and over again.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's no question. It's weird, frustrating, whatever you want to say. It is uncanny that it continues to happen, that it always seems to be all of the guys at the same time that get cut. It's not like, hey, Harper's struggling right now, but Turner's scorching hot. You know, you asked the question at the beginning, did they peak too early? I think there's a case to be made that, yes, a lot of guys, but here's the thing, though. Offensively, I don't think that was – they didn't get off to this like – okay, so in 2022 and 2023, what was the problem? They were playing from behind. They kept having to get hot at the end of the year because they didn't play well at the beginning of the year. So much so they fired Joe Girardi because they were, 22 and 32 or something like that when they fired him, and, then they got hot. Last year they didn't get off to a great start. They got hot at the end of the season and then ended up making the wild card. This year, they got off to this really hot start. And now, like we said, they were an 114-win roster. But they were playing over their heads. But the weird part was, it wasn't because they were having these offensive, super uncanny offense. They didn't have guys having MVP seasons. They played over their heads because their pitching was so good. Suarez and Sanchez and Hoffman and Strahm. And now Hoffman and Strahm have been human. Suarez is hurt. Sanchez has been up and down a little bit. So it's weird in that the offense wasn't the reason they got off to such a great start. But they are certainly the reason they're struggling right now because the pitching's still been pretty good.
Yeah, the starting pitching has been fine for the most part. That has been the problem. It's the offense. It's the bullpen here and there. They can't figure out a way to close out a game, or the offense just isn't scoring enough runs. And you mentioned that they get off the hot start this year. The past 2 years, they've been coming from behind, right? And it's kind of like the script is flipped a little bit. Like, it's just the opposite ends now of the seasons where you're seeing them, okay,
yeah, so there's somewhere
like, slower start.
So were they the team at the first half of the year that got off to this 114-win pace? No. Are they this team right now that's winning about 35% of their games since the All-Star break? No. They're probably going to advance right back to the mean. They'll win about 90 games, which is right where they've been the last couple of years. The frustrating part with that would be, though, is that good enough? And I would say no. Right now, you ask me the question, is this team good enough to win the World Series? Sure. Can they win it? Do I expect them to? No, I do not.
See, I expect them to win. This is a championship level team. I know the way they're playing.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I say I think they can, but are you asking me if I think they will? I would say no, not good enough. Team's not good enough.
All right. I think they're good enough. I think the talent's there.
I think they're good enough to do it, but I don't think they will. Is my thing. You're saying you think they're the favorite.
I would say they're the favorite still.
Right.
The only team that concerns me is still Arizona. I'm not giving up faith yet. I'm not going to do that.
I'm going to tell you right now. They're not beating the Dodgers. They're not better than Arizona. They are probably, I tell you right now, you get stuck in a series with the Mets. You excited about that? They got two lefties.
I understand that. Listen, here's the problem, okay? If all of their guys, like Harper, Turner, the top of the line, if they get hot again, the Phillies are unbeatable. If their starting pitching's good enough, if the bullpen comes around, if all of those things align like it did in the beginning of the season, they win. They win. And I'm confident that can happen. Okay. That's why I don't think they've peaked early.
I agree with you. If. If I have 5 ifs all come together, yes, they will win the World Series.
Oh, we've seen them come together.
Not when it's mattered the most, I haven't. When it's mattered the most, I've seen what I'm seeing now. A team that can't hit, strikes out way too much, and they didn't add to that team. That's what I see. Well, I see a team that brought back the same lineup that struggled in the Arizona series and struggled in the Astros series. And they said, you know what? Let's stick with that. Then they went to the trade deadline and added a guy that gives them no help. This roster, sad to say, I got to be the truth teller here because you don't want to be. They're not good enough.
I think they're good enough. They have talent. They could have enhanced this team. I agree with you there. The deadline day, they fumbled that. Adding Austin Hayes, I'm with you there. That was a total mistake, a total misjudgment by Dave Dombrowski in this front office. I'm with you there. But I still think this team is talented enough to win a World Series. No doubt.
I do too. I think they're talented enough, but I don't think that's enough. There are a bunch of teams that are talented. You're not listening. They are talented enough, but there are multiple teams that are talented enough, and they're not better than those.
All right, I think they're better than the Dodgers. I think they're better than most of the teams heading into the postseason.
You need to watch the Dodgers play.
I watch the Dodgers play. I think they've beaten the Dodgers all year. I think they can beat the Dodgers.
Not a healthy Dodgers team. Watch the Dodgers when they're healthy. You tell me if you're getting that.
What have they done? Every year they choke when they get into the playoffs. Every single year they find a way to lose.
They have, absolutely. But I think their pitching, you have not seen their pitching yet. Yamamoto is going to be back. Glasnow, he'll be back. When they get those two guys back with that lineup's better than your lineup, and it's not close.
Yamamoto still has not pitched in a postseason. He doesn't know what to expect as he pitches at Citizens Bank Park. We saw what the Phillies did against Spencer Strider. I'm just saying, I know they can be great all regular season, but once they get to the playoffs.
I understand what you're saying and I agree with you. Are they good enough? They can be. There's a bunch of teams that can be. Right now, batter 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in this lineup are not good enough. They're not good enough. So they have to rely on batter 1, 2, 3, and 4 to be hot the entire playoff round. They might carry them through the first round. They might carry them through the second round. But you're going to need those guys to be their best for 3 or 4 straight series. And that's not happening. I'm sorry.
All right, we'll see what happens. We will revisit this when October rolls around. Remember, 2022, they limped into the playoffs, and magic happened. Anything can happen, Mike.
I'm just telling you. I agree with you. Can they? Yes. You're asking me on August 23rd at 4:43. I'm telling you, not good enough.
Listen, I know the morale has been sour, but I'm here to be a beacon of positivity, Mike. That's what's going to happen. All right, I got to move along. I got a couple more nuggets for you, Mike.
Yeah, what else you got?
Number 2. I heard you and Josh talking before the break, and I thought of this nugget right before I came on. I had to think of something. I was like, oh, this would be a great nugget. So you mentioned you knew exactly where you were. This is the hatred. No, I guess not the hatred, I should say. It's probably a bad word for you. But the frustration you have with Nick Castellanos reaches all-time levels with you on this show.
I was a huge fan of the Castellanos signing, by the way. Loved it.
But you remembered exactly where you were, when it happened, how it happened, and the exact time frame it happened. So, Mike, this got me thinking. Because you remember that exact moment, for you, what was the most shocking sports memory that you can think of?
The most shocking sports memory?
Yes.
Like, what do you mean?
So, in the sense of like a signing, a trade, something related to any of the 4 major sports. You remember where you were at the Castellanos signing? Give me your most shocking sports memory and where you were.
Man, that's a tough
I can give you one right off the bat.
I mean, a lot of the times it happens when I'm on the air. I mean, these trades happen. I'm live on the air and they happen. You know, the Cliff Lee trade when he got traded to Seattle for Philippe Aumont and a bag of donuts and a couple of tomato cans. That one. I remember I was on the air. It was terrible.
All right. I got one for you. So this was like a giant shift in the National Basketball Association. When Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, I was sitting on the beach on my phone, half asleep. I checked my phone. Kevin Durant was traded. That was probably one of the most shocking sports moments in recent memory, signings, trades, whatever, that I can remember. Not related to Philly here, but Kevin Durant going to Golden State. That I was so shocked. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing that day, on vacation, on the beach when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. The snake himself left OKC.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can remember another one. I don't really remember where. I do remember when Michael Vick signed with the Eagles. We were doing a show at the time on at the old Hilton Beach Bar in Atlantic City, and right when that show ended, we were on the beach bar at the Hilton, which is of course closed now. The Hilton's not even there, but the beach bar has been shuttered for years. We finished the show there, and Vic had signed with the Eagles, and we had been eating dinner, and we were like, Vic, and it was all over the place. So that one I remember. I also remember when the Flyers got Lindros.
Oh.
That was a big one. That whole thing with the fax machine. In fact, Comcast, NBC Philadelphia, has done a whole 30-minute feature on that whole trade. So this whole thing was Lindros didn't want to play for the Quebec Nordiques. He was going to get traded, and the Flyers had made a deal, and the Rangers had made a deal. But they faxed in the deals, and there was like a weird thing with the fax machine. So they had to get an arbitrator, and the arbitrator had to listen to the cases on both sides. And all of a sudden they awarded Lindros to the Flyers, and that was a huge deal. By the way, you know what else happened the day Michael Vick signed with the Eagles?
What happened that day?
It was the same day that Michael Jackson died.
Oh, that's right. You know how old I was? I was like 10 years old.
That happened earlier in the day. Before our show started that day, Michael Jackson had died, and then Michael Vick signed with the Eagles that night.
How about that? I didn't remember that. Wow. So that was the same day. Look, you got my creative juices flowing before I came on Nuggets. I made a call right before I came on Nuggets to make this Nugget number 2.
Listen, the Cliff Lee trade to Seattle, that one was one of the worst. I remember blasting Ruben Amaro on the air for weeks because of that deal.
Yeah, those are some good ones. That's a great story. Yeah, the Kevin Durant one just stuck out to me as like a big sports moment. It's on the beach, half asleep. Crazy stuff. All right, final nugget before I get rolling out of here. Did you see, so speaking of trades, I don't know if you've seen the social media reaction to the Dotson trade. I mean, you've had people all over reacting to Howie Roseman's magic once again. And I don't know, did you see, Mike, are you familiar with the artist Wale?
No.
All right, so he's a rapper.
I've heard of him, but I'm not familiar with his work.
He's a Commanders fan, and he was tweeting up a storm. He even mentioned that when he does a show in Philly, he tweeted out saying he loves interacting with the Eagles fans, even though he's a Commanders fan. He said the next time he has a show in Philly, if someone is wearing an Eagles Dotson jersey, he's throwing them out. He's throwing them out of the show, out of the venue. He doesn't want them watching his show anymore. So that was a crazy reaction from a superstar. Then you had someone go into the Madden generator. Someone put out a video on TikTok, Mike, into the Madden generator to do the exact same trade, what Howie Roseman and the Commanders did. And they literally told, the computer came up and said, this trade it will not work. They declined the trade. Madden declined the trade that Howie Roseman did with the Commanders. So the Eagles clearly got away with one.
I don't know, man. So we were talking about this yesterday with Mosher and then McMullen today and Adam Kaplan today. They all thought that the third round pick that they gave up was actually a lot to give up for a number 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently Madden didn't think so because they declined the trade and the computer said no.
Well, but that's okay, so that's what I say all the time. I got a guy, God bless him, I wish he stopped by here and said hello. He sends these texts in all the time with 8-for-1 player trades, right? And I'm like, dude, this isn't Madden football. Like the Madden computer's like, 8 players for 1, 8 crappy players for 1 good one. No, I don't want to do that trade, right? So, I got a guy in my fantasy baseball league. He'll offer me 5 players that he picked up off the waiver wire for one of my best players. He's like, these 5 guys. And I'm like, dude, I could have picked all 5 of them up off the waiver wire. Why do I want them now?
It's hysterical. It's hysterical. Because, the social media reaction to that Dotson trade, you wouldn't think for a trade like that, a third wide receiver would get that kind of buzz. It was getting buzz all over the place yesterday. Pretty fascinating stuff. All right, Mike, that's nugget number 3 for you. Final nugget heading into the weekend.
All right, there you go. Nick's Nuggets are back on Monday here on the Sports Bash. And Monday, we're going to be live over at Ocean Casino at the Gallery Bar booking games. Of course, Bob Wankel joins me on Mondays, and Haley Simon's going to be our on-site producer. She's actually taken over Danny's role, Danny Ryan. Holy mackerel, I don't even know what I got here. But I got another hour of the show left to go, including on the other side. When we come back, Sal Paolantonio joins me. Darius Slay says Kellen Moore will bring Hurts to the next level. Does Sal Paolantonio see another level from Jalen Hurts this year? That's next. Plus, another edition of the Big Three is coming up at 5:30 tonight. We're live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House in Egg Harbor Township. Their happy hour specials go for 1 more hour, as do ours. $3.50 Bud Light drafts and $5 neutral vodka orange seltzers. Stop out and see us. Got another hour to go.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
And I'm telling you right now, Jalen is looking amazing. I love Kellen Moore. I'm so old. I used to play with Kellen Moore in Detroit, if y'all ain't know. I know what kind of offensive mind he is. He go do great things with Jalen, man. He upgraded Jalen's skills, man, and making him a smarter player, making him a better player, making him make a lot of reads, a lot of checks, trying to get him the freedom to be one of the super, super elite guys.
That was Darius Slay talking about how Kellen Moore is helping Jalen Hurts. He said he's going to take him to the next level. We're going next level now with ESPN's Sal Paolantonio, who joins us now on a Friday edition of the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And you heard Sal Pal what Darius Slay said. What kind of impact do you think Kellen Moore is bringing to this Eagles offense? They made the trade, they got a lot of weapons, and they got a new coordinator. Feels like they think this offense is going to be a lot better than the one we saw clunking around last year.
Well, especially at the end of the year. There's no question about it. Kellen Moore is an upgrade. He's a professional offensive coordinator. But you have to make sure that you keep this in mind. There are going to be growing pains, Mike Gill. There's going to be growing pains. 95% of the offense, as Jalen Hurts said, is new. You've got a new running back who's going to demand the football in the running game and in the passing game. So he's got a lot of mouths to feed. You bring in Johan Dotson as a slot receiver now. You got to make sure that everybody gets distribution of the football. And the most important thing is protection of the quarterback. The number one problem that they had last year was they couldn't decipher the blitz. And now you got a new center in Cam Jurgens. You got Jalen Hurts involved in the protection calls. He says he's looking forward to doing that. But, you know, you can do that in shorts and helmets at training camp. You know, they certainly have put in some of it during preseason games, but until you're playing in live action football week one, and the new defense of the Green Bay Packers under Jeff Hafley going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, a new scheme, one of 17 new defensive coordinators in the league, Mike, you got to make sure that you protect the quarterback. That's job one. You had 70 different starting quarterbacks last year. They got to make sure they protect Jalen Hurts. He's got to protect himself. There are going to be growing pains in this offense, but I do think it's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people look at this offense and the change in coordinator. Is it just that simple, Sal? Is it that simple that the change in coordinator should streamline everything? I don't know that we have an answer as to why the offense, you know, they still scored, I think it's the fifth most points in franchise history last year, but I think we can all agree that something just didn't feel or look right about the offense.
Well, number one, turnovers. When they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 8 times. Last year, he turned the ball over 20 times. Number two, blitz protection. The last 2 games, Wink Martindale, Todd Bowles, 2 blitzing schemers, absolutely eviscerated the Eagles' offense. They couldn't protect. He didn't have an answer. So there will be 2 specific things that I think people should look for in the first game against the Packers. And I'm going to join you from Brazil, Mike. I am going to join the program from Brazil. I'm going to Brazil with the team. On Friday before the game, I will do my best to connect with you. We'll have Josh get the number right, and we'll try to connect for sure. And maybe we can even do it via video from Brazil. That would be pretty cool on your show. But that first game against the Packers, Mike, you got to look for 3 major things that are 3 major things that are going to be different for this offense. Number one, pre-snap motion. The Eagles were last in pre-snap motion last year. This year, they'll be much better at it. They'll have more of it in the offense. Why do you want to do it? You're presenting a puzzle to the defense that the Eagles didn't present last year. Number 2, the addition of Saquon Barkley, I think, is the number 1 offensive addition all across the entire National Football League. And 3, blitz protection. Blitz protection will be critical against the Packers defense that failed last year to get to the quarterback, and that's why they got bounced out at the end in the playoffs. So that's the most important thing.
The blitz protection, yeah, you're right. Last year, teams just kept sending people at them, and the Eagles just didn't seem to have an answer. You mentioned Barkley, the number 1 addition in the NFL. I'll ask you this. I was on ESPN Radio game night last night with Q Myers and David Dennis, and they asked me about him. And I say this to them, and I want to ask you, Sal Pal. You had a 1,000-yard year from Swift. You had a 1,200-yard year from Sanders the year before. Should I anticipate Barkley being better than that?
Absolutely, yes. But also a major factor in the passing game. There's no question. He's a good blocker. He's an every down back. He's an every down back. And I think he is going to be a tremendous addition to the team. I really do. He gives Jalen Hurts quick outlet passes. But listen, let's all slow the roll, because there are going to be growing pains in this offense, and it's going to be up to Jalen Hurts to continue to improve and up to Kellen Moore to figure out exactly what's going to work. That trip that I keep going back to Brazil, right? Why? Well, no team has ever traveled this far for a preseason game. So the Packers and the Eagles are going to be tested. They're going to be tested physically, going to Brazil and playing in this game. And they're going to be tested mentally as a result. And how they respond to one another in real time in a game on a Friday night. They're not used to playing games on Friday night. No. So football players, no matter how much they're getting paid, are creatures of habit.
Right.
And this is going to be that first game will be a big test. What people shouldn't do is automatically assume that what they're getting out of training camp, the reports of near perfection from the quarterback, is automatically going to translate, because the pass rush changes everything in the NFL. It's a blitzing league, and everybody knows that. Points scored were down at a 5-year low last year, and it's really going to be up to Hurts and Kellen Moore to figure out how to make it work.
All right, we're talking with ESPN's Sal Paolantonio, who, by the way, will be in Brazil covering the Eagles and the Packers. And, of course, that game you can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN. But you just mentioned the pass rush. You lost Reddick. You brought in Huff. You got Nolan Smith. You drafted last year. You got Josh Sweat. What's the Eagles' pass rush, Sal Pal, going to look like this year?
Well, Mike, you started on offense, but if you had asked me what's the number one thing that I'm going to be looking at for this football team, it's the defense. The Eagles were the only one of the 14 teams that made the playoffs last year that allowed over 400 points. So this is the number one job, and it's up to Vic Fangio to do two things. One, cover the back end, but break down the protection. So protect the house, but break down the protection. And how he does that is going to be very, very important. Again, you're testing the stamina of the players right away. So his defensive line rotation is going to be very important. It's not just your front four. You got to have 8-10 guys on that defensive line rotating. In South America, we don't know what the humidity or the heat's going to be like down there in that game. What the atmosphere will be. It will be a big first test against Jordan Love, who many people believe is an MVP candidate this year.
Sal, I know you know Ross Tucker well. He does a lot of the preseason games, or all the preseason games. He was on his podcast the other day, said something I was interested in talking to you about this week. He says it's time to put to rest that the Eagles have a problem at linebacker. He says, I like the linebackers on this team. Are you okay or better than okay with the guys they have playing linebacker this year?
We won't be able to really tell definitively for a couple of weeks, but I do think it's promising. I think Devin White last year was upset that he didn't get a contract in Tampa. He has talent. He has to bring the business end of what he does on the football field to the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got to add some thump, and he's got to add some coverage ability. Fangio's going to ask him to do a lot. The rest of the core of that group has got to step up. I mean, totally we need to see more from Nakobe Dean. I think, it's a wait-and-see attitude on the defense for me. I mean, I think it's definitely going to be better than last year at the beginning of the season because of the presence of Devin White. That guy's when he plays, he's a major impact player. He's got some speed and he's got some attitude and he's got some leadership ability on the field if he wants to, express that in those ways, physically and mentally, he'll be a force to deal with, 100%. He has the chance to be, I think, a Pro Bowl player this year if he wants it. He's in prove-it year. He wants a big contract. Howie Roseman has been known to be very stingy with linebackers. But, this is a year for him where he's got to say, all right, I deserve to stay in this league, and I'm going to show people. So a lot of it comes down to one guy, to me, Devin White.
All right, that's the linebacker, always a question. But, Sal, they invested heavily draft capital in the secondary. So how much better do they feel about their secondary today than the day they left the field in Tampa in that wild card game?
Well, two things, scheme and personnel, right? So the scheme will be, I think, much better because of Fangio's presence. His he stresses communication, coverage, coordination, all of those things on the back end. And you saw it against the Patriots, the first drive. Now, it was Jacoby Brissett, but they were allowing backup quarterbacks at the end of the year to carve them up. And you saw that in the end zone, when the Patriots had the ball, there was good communication and terrific coverage all along the end zone. And Brissett stared down a receiver, and number 29, Avonte Maddox, stepped in front of the pass and intercepted it in the end zone. So that was a play that I thought was very promising.
Sal, somebody had messaged earlier. I want to ask you this question. Somebody messaged earlier. We were talking about this earlier in the week. Which coordinator will have a bigger impact this year, Fangio or Kellen Moore?
Well, it has to be Fangio. It has to be. And I think he will. I think we'll see it right away in terms of the scheme. You'll see Gardner Johnson back there calling the signals, being the quarterback, center fielder on this defense. You have two deep safeties. I think that will reduce the number of big plays that they give up and also reduce the number of points that they gave up. You can't give up over 400 points in a season and really do any kind of damage on the way to a Super Bowl. That number's got to come down by a good 50, 60 points, and then you won't put so much stress on the offense as a result. They won't have to score as much points. The late, great Jim Johnson used to say, listen, I'll keep it to 16 points or less, 16 or 17 points per game, and you guys do the rest, and we'll win a lot of football games. And he used to say, what we're going to do is protect the house and break down the protection. And that's what you're going to see from Fangio. I think they'll be good on the back end. I want to see what they're going to do in order to generate pressure.
Well, there you go. A little overview of the Eagles season. Sal Paolantonio, who's back for another season. Johnny G and the Burger Realty team hooking us up for another season of Sal Pal. I'm celebrating 15 years on the air this whole summer, Sal. You've been a big part of these Sal Pal Fridays. It's got to be like year 8 or something.
Well, I think it is year 8, Mike. I think you're right. Congratulations on year 15. Listen, in this environment where there's so much competition, you're so good at your job, you're the voice of South Jersey, you're the voice of the Jersey Shore, all the way up and down into Delaware and Maryland. I could drive down there. I hear you all the time. People love you. You do a great job. You're very incisive with your questions. Your commentary is measured but important. I think you do a fantastic job. That's why I'm on your show. Thank you to Johnny G and the entire team of Burger Realty in Ocean City. Another great summer out of those guys. And, Sal Pal Friday's back, and we're going to kick it off. Hopefully, if we can get the communication down, Pat, we'll join you from Sal Pal. Mike, you can't have a game of tackle football in Sal Pal without Sal Pal.
That's right. So we'll have Sal Pal from Sal Pal.
You should do an ad on that, Michael. You should do an ad on that.
I know, right? We'll set it all up. I'm actually going to be on the road again that day. Every Friday we're celebrating 15 years of the sport. Today, by the way, we're at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House, Egg Harbor Township. Tommy Harris, one of the owners, just stopped by. Yeah, man, this place is special. It's awesome. Actually, I got a quick story on Vagabond. The Atlantic City one is where I met my girlfriend. That's where we met. Vagabond, Atlantic City. And I actually have the coordinates on my wrist of the place that we met. So it's always a special
Wait a minute.
spot.
Are you telling me your girlfriend met a vagabond at the Vagabond? Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. I was bebop-ing and skit-scatting around at the time, and she kind of reeled me in, and now there's only one.
You got very lucky, that's for sure.
Well, Sal Pal Fridays are a staple. We can't wait for another season of them, and we look forward to getting ready for the Eagles and the Packers right here on 97.3. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, Mike.
All right, Sal Palantonio is back for another year, and that's, again, thanks to Johnny G and the Burger team. We look at what Sal said. He said if we were to start the conversation off with the biggest importance, he said it would be the defense. And we asked that question earlier in the week. Which coordinator have a bigger impact, Moore or Fangio? He said it has to be Fangio. He's right about that. I think he's right about it needs to be Fangio. The defense was 30th in the league last year. You can't be 30th in the league and expect to win a Super Bowl. But the offense last year should have been better. And that's why I think Moore will have a bigger impact, because I think the offense will be better than it was last year. And in this league today, you got to score points. You got to score points. The defense has to do their job. But as we saw in the Super Bowl, when the Eagles won, you don't have to be great. You just have to make the play. The Eagles' greatest play in the history of the franchise, okay? I stand by this. The greatest play in the history of the Eagles franchise is the strip sack. There's no other play better. Not Montgomery running against the Cowboys. There is no better play. It's the strip sack. It's not the Philly. It's the strip sack. Without the strip sack, they don't win this game. So their defense that day, people forget, was lousy. They couldn't get a stop until they needed a stop. And they got it when they needed it. So Fangio's defense has to be better to get them to the Super Bowl. And when they get to that game, they need to make the play. But their offense has to be way better than it was last year. Period, point blank. End of sentence, Josh.
I was going to ask you, so what does the offense being better mean, though? Like, how does Mike Gill measure it being better?
It's a fair question, and I think you wrote this in your notes to me today. You think I don't read these notes, but I do read these notes. And you said that last year they had the 5th most points in team history. Is that accurate? Seventh most. Okay, yeah. 7th most points in team history their offense scored last year. That's unbelievable. Now, keep in mind one extra game, but guess what? I bet you the Eagles would have loved to take one extra game and throw it into the trash can.
But here's the context. They scored 44 less points last year than the 2022 season, which is the most points they've ever scored in a season. So, in a 1-year difference, Mike, they both 17-game schedules, right?
Yep.
44-point difference between 2022 and 2023.
They scored in the 30s a lot early in the year. They had a bunch of games early in the year where they scored in the 30s. And after that, there was like the Washington game, the Buffalo game. I think they scored in the 30s.
Buffalo game, yep, they went to overtime.
Yeah, so they scored in the 30s a lot in during that 10-1 run. But the second half of the season, they were dreadful. The offense was terrible.
Right, specifically like games like Seattle where they just seemed to be able to do nothing right.
Yeah, exactly. The Seattle game was bad offensively, and then you're playing a team like Arizona and the Giants.
Well, guess what? They scored 30 points in that game, but that's where the defense became a problem.
Absolutely. Whatever reason, their offense just never looked fluid. Their offense just didn't look crisp. It didn't look fun. It wasn't a fun watch.
Right. Jason Kelce said they lacked creativity.
Watching their offense last year wasn't fun. You weren't excited to see the offense come on the field. You were dreading watching how they're going to screw it up again. I don't know. I choose to black that part out of my mind now of the final 7 weeks. I want to move on from it because, as I said the other day, this team is really flipping good. All right, let's get past last year and come to terms with this is a really good team. And if they're not in the Super Bowl hunt, we should all be disappointed. Fair?
It's very fair. So back to the original question. So for you, Mike Gill, is there a points per game? Is there a total of points that you're looking for from this Eagles team that you say, if they hit this marker, you're going to see a team that's going to win 12, 13 games?
It's funny you say that because I was talking about this the other day on Birds 365. I was a guest on that show, and they asked me that same question. And they said, what's the points per game then that you are hoping to see? And for me, I said it's really hard for an NFL team to average over 30 points a game. I think that might be almost asking too much. Like, is that crazy to say? Like last year,
the team that had the most points per game was the Dallas Cowboys. They averaged 29.9.
Right, exactly. And I said, like 29.1 would be the number. Like
Dolphins
right under
last
30,
year averaged 29.2.
Yeah, right under 30 points. I think it's hard to say 30 points a game, but 29.1 would be the number for me that I think the Eagles should be coming in at this year.
Yeah, last year the Cowboys averaged 29.9, Dolphins averaged 29.2, and the team that won the NFC, Mike, the 49ers, they averaged 28.9.
All right, by the way, Philly's lineup is out. You want to hear it?
Yeah, give it to the people. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage.
Here you go. Philly's lineup tonight. Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Castellanos, Stott, Realmuto, Marsh, Hayes. Walker's on the mound tonight. Walker, Texas Ranger on the mound tonight. Again, there's not a lot of shakeups you could do to this lineup. There just isn't. And I said it before. I'll say it again. They failed this team at the trade deadline. You get Austin Hayes, you hit him in the 9-hole. That's not enough. That wasn't enough impact for this offense.
I got to find that you failed this city drop again.
They failed this city.
But you're going with the song. I'm going with the line from the TV show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, disappointed.
Same difference. Yep. Failure is failure.
Austin Hayes, nice player, not good enough. You trade for a guy and hit him in the 9-hole, how's that helping your team?
It's not really. And
listen, and I said all along, it's funny because Alumni Weekend was last weekend. They had Aaron Rowan on the broadcast, and I said, this guy is the most popular guy who's done nothing, right?
Yes.
And he's now being usurped by Brandon Marsh, a popular guy who does nothing. I think, and I've been saying all year long, Marsh stinks. And Marsh is killing this team right now.
He's in center field again.
Yeah, well, he's there's a right-handed pitcher pitching, so this is where Marsh shines, right?
I have to double check.
The numbers on Marsh, by the way.
Yeah.
Here you go. Ready for these?
Oh, the hitting numbers?
Marsh just left 150 runners on base in 363 plate appearances. Last year, he left 156 runners on base in 472 appearances. He's been double as bad this year as he was last year, and I thought he stunk last year.
And you know what bothers me, Mike, is you bring up the hitting. My problem with Marsh is the fielding. He has 4 errors this year, and they were all egregious.
Yeah, well, you
literally brought him here for defense.
Well, I think they brought him here because they thought he could be a lift to the offense, too. I think they wanted to try to get him to change his approach and stuff, and he just strikes out way too much. And listen, you know why he strikes out a lot? Because he's not very good. I hate to say it. I like the guy, and I said at the trade deadline, you almost can't trade him because he means too much to this clubhouse.
Right.
But guess what? Stubbs doesn't play every day, and he means a lot to the clubhouse. So Marsh has got to be at the point where you got to start thinking about, is there a better option? And I've been saying it since April. But, All right, coming up, Big 3 on the other side. We're live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House in Egg Harbor Township. This is the EHT spot. Come see Jeff at the bar. They got the happy hour going till 6. You know who else came here, Josh? The Schweiners here. Nothing could be finer than watching the Schweiner plow down some nachos.
I thought you were going to say nothing could be finer than watching Schweiner seriously order from the happy hour menu.
Well, he did, and he got the extreme nachos, and they're gone already.
Wow.
They're gone.
He just ran through them.
He did. So stop out. We'll be here till 6. We're going to stay along, watch some Phils tonight. They play the Royals. That's their lineup tonight. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage. Moving's a breeze with Clark's Moving and Storage. We met some fun listeners today. Thanks to George and Shaner and Mike and Tom and some others that came over and said hello. There's Jimmy over there. Jeff's at the bar. We're having a good time. It's Happy Hour Friday, 15 years of the Sports Bash. Next week, we're going to Cape May County for Happy Hour Friday. We'll be at Jester's Dive Bar in Rio Grande. I've been there before. You know when I went there, Josh?
Talk to me.
I did the Cape May County Brewery tour, and we stopped at Jester's for a little food.
Nice.
You know, the breweries don't serve food. So we had to get a little grub somewhere. Went to Jester's.
Yeah, you got to put some food in your stomach, Mike Gill.
Got to. And Jester's, great spot. I loved it. They have a really eclectic menu. A lot of like pulled pork and mac and cheese type of. It's a really good menu. So we'll be there next Friday. But today we're at Vagabond EHT. Their happy hour every day from 3 to 6. They got a lot of choices on this menu, and it's $3.50 Bud Lights and $5 neutral vodka seltzer orange. Stop at the bar and pick up one of those before the happy hour ends. We got you more with the Big Three coming up next.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Well, I think this is now giving Philadelphia the Eagles have the best wide receiver trio with A.J. Brown, Devontae, and Jahan Dotson. This was a really good offense to begin with. If Dotson just replicates what he did, which is 50 or so catches and 500 yards at that number 3 wide receiver spot, I don't know of anybody in the NFC that can line up and play man-to-man coverage against those 4 pass catchers.
That's Dan Orlovsky talking about the Eagles trade for Dotson and what it means for the offense. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're live at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. It's a happy hour Friday. They've got all sorts of wine specials, drink specials up until 6 o'clock tonight. I know Billy Schwein was over there hammering down the extreme nachos that were on the happy hour menu. So you can get about a half hour to get the happy hour pricing on the food. And don't forget, stop out. We've got the David Spade tickets, 99 bottles entries. And, every Friday we're on the road, including this Friday at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. Right now, it's time for today's Big Three.
You know, it's big, Mike, because I'm about to ask Billy Schwein if those nachos were part of his dietary restrictions he's been on lately.
Yeah, he told me. He said, I can't eat bread. I said, you just ate nachos.
Right. How does that work?
He said they're not as bad as bread.
Well, I mean, yes, in the most literal sense, they're not. Now he's pulling a Josh move.
Yep.
You know, it takes one to know one, right,
Can't
Mike?
eat nachos if you're doing, like, no bread.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, did I want to be the one to have to tell him that? But
well, someone's got to be the bad guy.
I'm the only one here. Right? I'm the only one not.
You're the only one willing to be honest with him? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mike, for today's Big Three, I played that Dan Orlovsky cut because he mentioned in that cut, Mike, the Eagles have the best receiver group in the NFL now. And I want to ask you, do you think that's true? Because, so you got Brown, Smith, Dotson, throw Goddard into the mix. Look around the NFL, Mike. Do you think there really is another team in the NFL that has the Eagles' offensive talent?
No. The answer is no. I mean, you've got San Francisco probably is the next one. Well, yeah, I mean, San Francisco, they would be McCaffrey and Barkley, you go McCaffrey. It's close, but you go McCaffrey. Ayuk and Debo or Brown and Smith, which ones do you like better?
I'd go the Eagles there.
That's up to you. And then, they've got Kittle, you've got Goddard. Probably like Kittle a little bit better there. So, yeah, those two teams are probably the most similar offenses in the league. The Dolphins got great receiver duo,
but they don't have a tight
running
end.
back. A chain's pretty good. You know, their tight end's not great though down there. So I think in terms of the depth of the whole offense, the Eagles and the Niners are probably the top two.
And by the way, with the Niners
even have like Jawan Jennings is a pretty good player,
right? Well, who would you rather have, Jennings or Dotson?
I mean, ceiling talent-wise, probably Dotson, but Jennings has probably been a better player so far.
Well, Jennings played on a better team, though.
I know. That's what I said. I going off of Dotson where he was, but he wasn't. I mean, look, Dotson scored 11 touchdowns in 2 years. That's nothing to sniffle at. But I think he's been disappointing if you're the 16th pick in the draft.
Sure, but he's also played with Sam Howell and Taylor Heineke.
I'm factoring all that in, yes. I think that makes the Eagles right there, if not better than the 49ers in terms of the entire offense. I mean, there's no clear-cut answer here. I mean, really. I mean, some people, like I said, Brown and Smith are just different from Debo and Ayuk. if you like that style, you're going to take those guys. If you like the Eagle, like Brown is the big physical number one wide receiver. The Niners don't have that guy. But what they have is, Deebo Samuel, nobody else in the league's like him. So if you like that style, you're going to go that way. It's really a matter of preference. I don't think there's one definitively better than the other.
Do we potentially throw the Texans into this conversation for best receivers?
They got Diggs.
They got Nico Collins from last year.
And Tank Dell. No. They're not in the – I mean, they're good, but they're not in the same conversation.
Not enough.
These guys. They don't have the track record. Like Nico Collins and Tank Dell have not done it as much as the Eagles and the Niners guys have.
True.
I mean, the Bengals used to be there. Right, when they had their three guys.
But they lost Boyd.
Mixon, but they lost Boyd and they lost Mixon.
Right, Mixon's in Houston now.
Down in Houston. So you got Mixon there with those guys. That's a really good offense. I also like, you got Hall and Wilson. The problem with that is that's the two. The rest of their group with the Jets is not all that good.
Right, the Jets don't have the two, the 3 and the 4, basically. They don't have the next guy.
Well, they did get Mike Williams from the Chargers, did they not? I actually think, who's got some sneaky good threesome with the running back is the Bears. You got Keenan Allen.
True.
You've got DJ Moore, and they drafted Rome Odunze, and they got DeAndre Swift. That's a pretty good grouping there. Cole Kmet has been, I think, a little disappointing as the tight end there. That's a pretty good group of skill players.
That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. That should be in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is the team that you're going to see week 1 of the NFL, the Packers.
They're good, too. They don't have that number one big name like Wallace and Romeo Dobbs. I don't think anybody's going to put them above Brown and Smith.
Right. Like Watson is a really good player, but the Packers just kind of spread around more. But they do have Josh Jacobs now.
Josh Jacobs could pick up there, yes. Falcons, by the way, you got Bijan, Drake London, Pitts. That's a nice. Oh, by the way, the Lions too. The Lions have a pretty good group there.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
With Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're going to get Jameson Williams there this year. He did not play last year. The tight end's very good there.
Jahmyr Gibbs at running back.
They also have Gibbs at running back. That's a pretty damn good skill group of players.
Well, to our point about the Eagles, Emmanuel Acho was saying that if you're an NFL defense, you don't know who you can zero in on. This is Emmanuel Acho.
Let me paint the picture for you at home on man-to-man coverage, the defense versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Cornerback 1 has to guard A.J. Brown. The cornerback number 2 has to guard Devontae Smith. The nickelback or cornerback 3 has to guard Jahan Dotson. A safety is going to have to roll down and guard Dallas Goedert. And the linebackers are going to go 2-on-1 on Saquon Barkley. If Saquon goes to the right linebacker has him. Saquon goes to the left linebacker has him. One safety's deep in the middle of the field. If A.J. don't win, Smitty will win. If Smitty don't win, Dotson will win. If Dotson don't win, Goddard will win. If Goddard don't win, Saquon will win. What I'm telling y'all is one of those 5 Eagles players on money down is winning.
He's not wrong about that, but you could make a case that was the same situation last year and it didn't pan out all that well.
But last year was a different coordinator. So now we get back to the whole Kellen Moore conversation, right? The point of if Kellen Moore is the difference maker, right, Mike? Then doesn't that make this team even more dangerous because they have the right coordinator?
Well, sure. I mean, look, Kellen Moore has to be a major upgrade over what Brian Johnson was doing last year, which, I feel bad for Brian Johnson. I don't think he got a really fair shot at this, but Kellen Moore has to be better. I mean, if he's not, it's a total disaster. With this group of players, you can't be mediocre. You can't just be average. You've got to be great. You've got to be great. And with this skill players, they had these guys last year. So what Acho says is great, but if you don't scheme them the right way, they obviously – now, I say they obviously can get shut down. They had a top 10 offense in the league. I don't think this is a top 10 offense. I think this is a top 3 offense.
Top 3. So then,
disappointing if they're not in the top 3.
So, like, for example, if I'm just throwing this as an example, okay? If they had the 5th best
By the way, you know who else
year,
has a pretty good group of guys?
Who's that?
You got Pollard, Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd in Tennessee.
And DeAndre Hopkins.
I said Hopkins.
Oh, you said Hopkins.
Yep.
That's pretty good, too. Now, the question is quarterback.
Yeah, their quarterback's not great. Their tight end isn't a big part of their offense either.
I was just
pretty good group, though.
It's a really good group, yeah. that's where the quarterback question comes in because, Mike, now let me ask you about Jalen Hurts. Is Jalen Hurts the right quarterback to execute this?
Sure. I mean, look, I go back to he was the best player on the field in the Super Bowl, not Patrick Mahomes. It was Jalen Hurts. He was the best player on the field. There's no reason to think that was a fluke. I mean, he had a year where he was the best player in the league for the most part. Yeah, he's good enough to get it done. He's good enough to get it done with this group of guys. And look, you go back to last year where he wasn't even all that great. He was pretty good. He was still the favorite in the MVP odds up until like week 12 of the season. He was like the betting favorite. So it wasn't that he had a terrible year last year. It just didn't stack up to the year he had the year before. So I think if he's somewhere between the guy from 2 years ago and last year, yes, he's good enough.
Stephen A. Smith, by the way, Mike Gill, agrees with you. He said this on First Take, saying that Hurts and the Eagles are the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat.
I'm going to throw out this name in all seriousness, Jalen Hurts. Why are we ignoring the Philadelphia Eagles? They got A.J. Brown. They got Devontae Smith. They got Goddard. They just acquired Saquon Barkley. Their offense should be pretty freaking elite. Knowing that they're expected to win the NFC East, that they'll have a chance to have home field advantage throughout the postseason, I don't think you can summarily dismiss it because they were just in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and we saw how Hurts performed in that game against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he said what I just said. He was the guy in that in the Super Bowl. You know, he made every play he could make. He had the fumble. That was the play that hurt them, but he made every throw, every play that basically the Eagles should have won that game. I mean, really, that fumble was a huge change in that game.
And the thing, again, we talk about offense a lot because that's what people focus on, right? So if you are going to be the team that adds all these pieces, you better put up, right? You better go out there and score all these points because Howie Roseman didn't hand all these toys. I mean,
quite frankly, they didn't add all these pieces. They added Barkley and they just got Dotson, but these pieces have been here.
Well, those pieces, yes, but I mean like the additions. You added the additions. The expectations get higher because of you. You're sitting here saying, Mike, if they're not a top three offense, it's disappointing.
I would be disappointed. Yep. I'm not going to back off on that one at all. I mean, we just went over a bunch of teams in the league, and I think they're better than pretty much all of them. The only one would be San Francisco. And by the way, also, we're talking about skill position players. The Eagles also have one of the top three offensive lines in football. I think Detroit's is right there, if not better, but they're one of the best three offensive lines in football. So you have best skill players and the best offensive line. A lot of those teams that we went down, they don't.
No, they don't. And I think that's a huge conversation as well. We can spend an hour talking about how if this team goes out there with Mailata, Dickerson, Juergens, Mekhi Becton at right guard, and Lane Johnson, the Eagles also have the physically biggest offensive line in the league. Yeah. It's like the wall of Dallas from the 90s.
The one thing is, look, Kelsey's not there. Juergens moves there. Who knows what happens if that's a huge drop-off. I don't think it's a huge drop-off. I know that's crazy to say. Kelsey was excellent, but I think they're going to be better with Becton at right guard than they were last year when Juergens got hurt, and then they had a bunch of different guys. If Becton can stay healthy, now he's been hurt a lot too.
He's been hurt a lot, although his biggest problem is eating too much food before practice. So as long as he gets that situated, I think we'll be fine.
Is that the problem?
Well, that's something John McMullen and I were talking about when you were out, Mike, was that he was talking about how he goes, John says, if Mekhi Becton just stops eating so much food for practice, he'll be fine.
Well, that's just not, he's had a lot of injury problems though with the Jets.
It's true. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Mike, that's today's Big Three.
There you go. Big Three, of course, here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live. But telling you guys, right? Got my buddy Rocco over at Key Acura, and now's the time. Between now and August 31st, you can lease a slick 2025 MDX all-wheel drive, just like the one I was driving. Actually, mine was a 2024. This one's a 2025. It's $599 a month, $49.95 down. or lease a 2024 Integra for $299 a month with $49.95 down while they last. Go see Rocco, Kia Acura, Tilton Road, EHT, your small but friendly dealer. See dealer for details. Coming up, we'll wrap up the show. We'll wrap up the week. 15 years of the Sports Bash on this Happy Hour Friday here at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House in Egg Harbor Township. You got 15 minutes to get here for the specials. They got great specials. Great specials. Happy hour every day, 3 to 6 here at Vagabond in Egg Harbor Township.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, there you go. It's time for a little Happy Hour Friday wrap-up here. Sports Bash Live. I want to thank Vagabond, as always, my man Jeff. Stop by and see Jeff at the bar. Tommy's in here tonight. I saw Tommy walking around. Kathy was here earlier. The people at Vagabond, outstanding. The EHT one we're at today. Of course, they got one in Atlantic City as well. I want to thank Bud Light for their help on this. $3.50 Bud Lights for the shows. We'll be at Jester's Dive Bar next week down in Rio Grande. So all my Cape May County friends and listeners, hope to see you guys at Jester's down there in Rio Grande next Friday for Happy Hour Friday. Phillies tonight, Kansas City, 8:10 start. Michael Waka is on the mound against Taijuan Walker. I got a little play for you guys tonight. We're going to do this at the end of the shows. Here you go. Ready for this, Josh? I got the play. You guys keep track of my plays for the people.
I'll write it down.
Yep. Taijuan Walker tonight, over 2.5 strikeouts. Take the over. He has a streak of 8 straight games where he has struck out 2.5 or more. So I'll take Taijuan Walker on the over tonight with strikeouts. But I think the Phillies lose again. And I think it's an ugly weekend. And I think when I come back on Monday, you guys are going to be really hitting the panic button.
Did you say that was 2.5 strikeouts?
Over 2.5. He's got a streak of 8 games or more where he has struck out at least 3 hitters.
That's wild that it's so low.
Well, he doesn't get through 5 innings half the time. That's part of the problem.
True.
I think it's going to be a tough weekend for the Phils. I do. It's not a good matchup. They got bad pitching matchups. Tom from Margate said, what did you think of the Black Velvet? I enjoyed it, Tom. I just finished it, actually, during the commercial break. Tom from Margate got me a Black Velvet, Josh. It's a Guinness with a little champagne, a little champagne.
Sounds good to me.
Yep. So there you go. For the football season, we'll do the play of the day every day at 5:45 as we get ready to wrap up the show. Again, thanks to there's Kevin, by the way. Don't want to forget Kevin from Vagabond and Jeff and all the crew here at Vagabond. Thanks to everybody who came out and said hello. We appreciate you guys stopping out. It's really cool. People just come in and say hello. Hey, have a beer. They leave. They come back. It's really cool to meet people. 15 years of the Sports Bash. I can't believe we're going 15 years strong. Monday, we are at Ocean Casino. Bob Wankel is back with me from Crossing Broad. We're going to be adding Haley Simon to the show. She's going to be a fun addition to the show on Mondays. And also, for the football season, we got another fun edition that I'll tell you guys more about next week on the Sports Bash. Josh has game night coming up next. Have a great weekend, everybody.